Hello, 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 everyone. It is a transatlantic call-in show here on the line. You are live here with Josie and Jack. How are you doing, Jack? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I've been kind of going through a bit of a work gauntlet lately, so I've been doing a lot of streaming, a lot of content creating, and a lot of IRL stuff. So I've just kind of been sprinting since Monday, and I'm ready to keep on sprinting through some wonderful
Yeah.
calls. How about
Well,
yourself?
I'm doing well. It's been I think I don't even think I did a show last month. It's been a minute since I've been here, because I am in the heat of the campaign as we have just a little over 30 days from June 23rd, which is election day for me, as I am running for county council at large here in Montgomery County, and things are so close. Like it's so close. It's a sleepy race, but it's a race that we are feeling very good about. So if all of you are here and want to support the campaign, you can always donate to our campaign, and I'll pull up the link. I haven't got it up yet, but I'll pull it up. And on the line, which is super great, we've raised over $8,000 just from the audience on the line.
Hell
So we're
yeah.
almost at 10. I want to get to 10, which I think would be super great because then I can say, yeah, this is a national campaign, even though it's at a local level. So
That's
yeah.
so exciting.
Yeah, I know. It is wild, but I don't get a lot of sleep, and I'm overworked, but it's all good. It's all for a good cause. Great. Let's get into I guess last week's poll that we
Yeah.
had. Are tanning beds safer than puberty blockers for minors? This is a good one. 79 says no, 6% says yes, and 15% says I'm mad there is not a third option. Yes. No, this is actually scientifically correct. Tanning beds are not safer than puberty
True.
blockers.
True.
There is an FDA warning on tanning beds that they has a very high likelihood of causing you skin cancer, while puberty blockers are fully reversible and also help alleviate gender dysphoria for trans youth, which is a
Heck
good
yeah.
thing.
It's a win.
Yeah, it is a win. It is a win. Do you have
And
any things to add? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, my only thing to add is one, I would absolutely have voted as being mad that there's not a third option. And number two, um, I I am recalling Tucker Carlson did like a documentary about like ball tanning and or like red
It's like
light
red light.
applied to the genitals. I don't know why that came up here, but like for a guy who's very against like trans people existing in general, that dude I've been thinking about Tucker Carlson a lot. He's on
I'm
my show.
sorry. I'm
I
sorry. I'm
know it's
sorry.
unfortunate.
That sounds like an affliction.
It is cursed to cover politics.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, he is slowly slipping into madness though.
Oh yeah.
Like demons are attacking him and
He
all of those type of
just
things.
did like an interview with a guy who was talking about how like basically anyone on the left is actually like possessed by a demon. Like
Hmm.
it unironically he's pushing that stuff constantly.
Yeah, that's just absolutely bonkers that he is pushing this stuff, and and we're supposed to take them seriously. I'm just like, I don't know about that. I don't know. It's just like, it's just yeah. And the fact that he's actually considered a possible presidential contender is absolutely just like, are you kidding me? Like our world is slowly slipping into the darkest regions of all apocalyptic novels.
It's true.
Um, But yeah, so let's go ahead and preview today's poll and then we'll take our first call. Do you think the House reps care about parents in HB 2616, or is cruelty of outing trans kids the point? And this bill is essentially to force out trans kids in education settings, and it did pass the House, and so did it pass the House? I'm not sure. I think it may or
Yeah.
may not. Yeah, it did. So yeah, it is going to be an absolute mess. I mean, here in Montgomery County, Maryland, they just were sued by a legal organization that was co-founded by Stephen Miller,
Oof.
and it was suing the schools to say that they are not force outing kids. So Montgomery County Public Schools decided that, oh, we'll go ahead and change the policy without any legal action to, if a parent requests the gender identity of their kids, that they have are forced to tell those parents. So completely violating the trust and privacy of the students. And, I always say this too, is like, most people can recall a teacher that was important in their lives that they could talk to about, things. It didn't matter what those things were, but that was a safe place that was outside of the home. And the idea that we are taking that environment away from students to be able to trust their educators is a very, very scary prospect of what we are bringing to our country. It's just another notch that hurts our education system, but it's really, really upsetting. Do you have
It
any
is.
any thoughts?
I mean, it's one of those things where it's truly horrific. Like the effects of this can't really be sufficiently summed up, because Republicans just don't care about suffering. And to the extent that they do care, it's because, outrage that is justified by the heinousness of their actions is viewed as a political win for them. Like they don't really care about whether or not suffering actually happens. They just care that people are going to be outraged by it because they get their fuel off of that. And like the trans people, we keep being downstream of all of these decisions that they keep making, and it sucks. It sucks. And the kind of mentality that they're mainstreaming with this type of hateful rhetoric, hateful legislating, um, it is directly leading to the radicalization of like teenagers and young people. Um, and I mean, I read some of the San Diego shooter manifesto, and a not insignificant amount of it is rhetoric that is right at home with the kind of, rank and file transphobes that, tend to call into our show to try and tell us that we're not human.
That's right.
It is very much related to that death cult mentality that spurs people to just take violent action. And I have no doubt that folks along those lines are going to feel more emboldened to do more awful shit. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so it is a complete disaster. And so yeah, it is absolutely heartbreaking. And I lived in San Diego for quite some time, and I've been to that Islamic Center quite often for
Oh,
many events, community events, and it's horrific to know that that this is what's been this is how the world is seeping into madness, and it is we have to hold the line. We have to hold the line.
yep.
Um, but yeah, so make sure that if you're watching, please call in. The phone number is 720-619-2288. And you can also, believe if you're out of the country, use the web caller to call into the show. We want to talk to you. As you know, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, schools should force out trans kids to their parents, or queer kids in general, call us, talk to us about it. Let us know how you feel about those type of things. So it looks like we do have a call. Ellie, she, her from California. Let's see, Ellie, you are live on the line with Jack and Josie. How are you?
Oh, my
Hey,
apologies. It's muted.
sorry,
Okay,
sorry, Ellie.
sorry, Ellie, let's try that again.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
hello,
good to
Ellie.
hear from you, Jack and Josie.
There we
Yeah,
go.
no
Hello.
worries.
Right, so
Yeah.
I don't know if the call screener got the general information to you yet, but I was calling because I hadn't seen that many people talking about this, but the new ATF rulings that are set to go into effect by the end of the summer has a particular rule that I think might be really concerning to trans people generally. Basically, the law states that, or the ruling states that you have to put your biological sex on the 4473 forms, which, for anyone who isn't aware, those are forms that you have to fill out for your background check anytime that you purchase a firearm. And my concern is how they're going to use that as a way of essentially de facto stripping trans people of their Second Amendment rights. And I kind of wanted to get your perspective on how feasible that could be, if it's even going to be like something that doesn't get challenged in courts or something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So are you, so when you're talking about, trying to legally purchase a firearm, um, I'm guessing they take a copy of your ID as well, right? Is that where the issue is, where your ID may conflict with the biological sex or the sex assigned at birth to be more accurate on the form? Is that what your
Pretty
concern
much,
is?
yeah. Like, cause I mean, I have purchased those before, and I have had to basically present my driver's license as a form of ID, and I can kind of just see like a dark future where essentially I hand over my like legal California ID that states accurately what my stated sex would be, and basically handing that over, and then immediately getting flagged as either like, we're just going to block you from purchasing this because the stuff isn't accurate, or worst case scenario, they basically say, oh, you're engaging in fraud, so now we have to go in and take you in for that.
That's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't put it past any of the regulations that we have happening across the country. And considering that it is not a state, but isn't it typically a state license or is it a federal form? I'm not too familiar with purchasing a firearm. I was
Oh
only
yeah,
issued them when I was in the military.
so the way that it generally works, the 4493, that is sent to, I think it's the FBI or some agency that's federally like regulated to basically just do an entire nationwide search. Like, okay, is this person, has this person committed a felony or whatever? Have they lied about like their background check information, things like that? And so my fear is like, basically, yeah, it's like that federal jurisdiction would clash with the local state jurisdiction, basically saying that like, I am not who I say I am, despite the fact that like legally speaking in California, I am legally a woman.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's one of those situations where, anybody who is afforded the right to purchase a firearm, everybody should have that right, and regardless of their sex or gender, or religious affiliation, race, all of those things. So when you talk about like citizen rights, you should be able to be given them across the board, without any weird, exceptions to who we are. I do worry personally about how many different registries like we're going to be put on as trans people with different states collecting medical records, different states choosing or seeing how many people change their birth certificates, for example, or you know, changing their driver's license, passports, and things like that. It's just, I think, another thing on the pile that is just another way to try to find the contradictions of our gender identity and trying to put us on a list somewhere. I don't want to like fearmonger, but it is something that we should all be vigilant on. Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not terribly concerned about the idea of like this is going to be used to deny trans people guns or take guns away from trans people. But I do share the fear that it would be used and like cross-referenced in some way across databases to like create like some kind of government list that could be used for various nefarious purposes. Um, but what exactly those purposes might be at this juncture, I don't know. And without like having kind of a clearer view or a clearer mechanism of like how and why they would use this and how it would be palatable to folks, because I know like the NRA, for example, has already, I believe, put out a statement condemning like this kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I don't think this is going to go over well even with like constituents for the GOP. So like I agree that it's bad, and I agree that like it could be used down the road for something terrible, but there are also like a million other ways for the federal government to get similar data. And
Yeah.
I guess I guess like yes, it's discriminatory and yes, it's awful. At the same time, I I'm not entirely sure what the end game would be or how it would work. So until then, I'm gonna be like, well, this sucks, but maybe we're still gonna be okay here. That's kind of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
initial knee-jerk response.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I don't know. I guess the main motivating reason why I kind of wanted to talk to you folks about this is mostly that I just haven't seen anybody outside of like two like very somewhat prominent like trans firearm content creators like actually talk about this. Like there's that Tactical Girlfriend put out I think an
Mhm.
article basically talking about the potential challenges this could put out, and then person on Twitter who runs this a program called Arm the Dolls, which is just like basically legal guidelines for trans people across the United States to navigate their legal system in getting armed essentially.
Mhm.
It just kind of seems odd that like for such a sweeping and potentially alarming change, it seems wild that it's like it feels like nobody's talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like it's kind of the case that like not enough people talk about trans issues in general outside of like trans circles, and then like we get a little bit further niche with like
Mm-hmm.
firearm content. It doesn't surprise me that the folks you mentioned are talking about it, and more people should be talking about it, frankly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it is like I think like a lot of people are a lot of trans folks that I know anyway have been more concerned with like ICE at TSA and like traveling and like freedom of motion throughout the country, and the focus hasn't quite been on freedom of to hold arms, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. Like I'm very content to only travel overland and really do anything to avoid going into an airport these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose that's really kind of all I wanted to kind of talk about.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up the topic. I do think it's important. Um
I agree.
Mhm.
I
so
agree.
thank you for shedding some light on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess
Appreciate you, Ellie.
I guess the last thing, if people wanted to kind of like dig a little more into this and possibly voice their concerns, they are actually hosting a public comment period where people are able to submit complaints about particular rulings, like generally for the whole batch. And there's already been a call out from those same content creators to basically voice their concerns on, like, is this basically a soft ban on trans people? How are you even going to enforce this? Like, what mechanisms are going to be used to verify people's biological sex? Like, that is an option that people can do. And I believe that hearing is going to take place between the next 2 months before they go into effect in, I think, August.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you very much. We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, thanks for the
All right,
information.
thank you.
Well,
Hope you
Ellie,
have a
have a
great rest
great
of your show.
yeah, and hope you have a great rest of your day. All right, talk to you later.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Before we take our next call, let's look at how the poll results are shaking out
Yeah.
with the chat. All right, I don't see what the chat decided. But again, the question is, do you think the House reps care about parents in HB 2616, or is cruelty of adding trans kids the point?
So
Do we have a
horizontal
number?
chat said 98% cruelty is the point, 2% said care about the parents, and that's with 166 votes. And on the vertical, with 79 votes, 92% said cruelty is the point, and 8% said they care about parents.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
Well, that makes sense.
I mean, it's obvious
And
that they don't care about the parents, right? Like, no GOP policy is actually helping parents right now.
right, right. And if you are part of those small percentages that think this is about the parents, please feel free to call in. We are here to chat, and that's why we do this show, so we can have these conversations to folks that may not normally have these abilities to have the conversations with an actual trans person. So before we take on the next call, I want to say at the end of the show, we will be reading super chats. So we read super chats of $5 or more, and we always have a friendly competition at the end of the show where whoever gets the most hashtag Team Jack or hashtag Team Josies will get to watch the loser defend an absurd point. We'll be putting up the poll on that absurd point later in the show. And also make sure you subscribe and like. We are really becoming a huge network here on the line, and your subscriptions and likes will help get the algorithm out there so we can have more of these great conversations that we have. I mean, these conversations come from all over the world. So make sure that we keep this show going. Also, you can join the Patreon and do that as well, where you get exclusive content where hosts get to do different questions. We do different little speeches and little webinar type things as well. And there's a lot of cool content. So make sure you join, be cool, and be a part of the Patreon. That would be great. So the next caller is Connie. They 26 from Minnesota. You are live on the line with Jack and Josie. You have a question for me. So yeah, what is it?
Hi, Josie. Hi, Jack. I love your shows both. But Josie, I know you're running for office, and I'm thinking about running for local office in my town as a city councilor. I'm just wondering, are there anything campaign-wise or policy or adversarial that I should be aware of if I do decide to run for local office?
Yeah, so I have the pleasure of training trans candidates nationwide. I do training with the Victory Institute, where we have an annual training with trans people. I also do coaching on my personal day job as well at Advocates for Trans Equality. So if you want to sign up, the interest form, I'm currently on sabbatical for another month, but you can also sign up there and you can get like one-on-one coaching and training on these type of topics. But the one thing that I can share, the first thing that I get a lot is, and that I like to share a lot anyway, is you got to know your why. Why you're doing this is the most important thing. And that why can be a lot of things. You want to make housing more affordable. You want to make sure that people have access to healthcare, or it could be like, I want clean water in my town, right? Those type of things are things that help drive you to do something that is bigger than yourself. I always like to think about the fact of, I use the example of the Hunger Games when Katniss, volunteers as tribute. She didn't just volunteer as tribute because she wanted to play in the Hunger Games. She volunteered as tribute because she wanted to protect her sister. The why was bigger than her own well-being because she wanted to give that protection. And when you're a trans candidate, you're kind of putting yourself on the microscope to get attacked from all types of weirdos online, or the media that will try to either trivialize your run, or just be like, oh, isn't this cute that this person is running? And you got to be able to have that thick skin, and the thick skin comes from doing something bigger than yourself. I tell all of the trans candidates that I work with that we don't run because we're trans to make history. That's just a cool fact about our runs. It's not the reason why we run. Because no matter what you do, when you announce for office, they're gonna talk about you being a trans person when you announce. That's how it is. The headline is either gonna be trans person wants to be the first, or LGBTQ advocate wants to run for office, and that's what they will do. That's what the media will do. That's what your opponents will do. And you just got to kind of be ready for that. So you got to be ready with a good reason why, right? A dear friend of mine, Danica Rome, who's a senator in the Commonwealth of Virginia, she wasn't running because she was trans. She was running because she wanted to fix Route 28, which was a terrible road in Virginia. And she ran on that. And people were like, oh, when people at the door would be like, hey, aren't you that trans person? She's like, yes, and I'm trying to fix Route 28, right? Or Route 28. And so that was enough for people to be like, oh, okay, you're actually trying to help the community. You just happen to be trans. So that's kind of what I say to first-time candidates, or trans candidates in general. It's not about screaming you are trans. It's about screaming you are human, right? Because trans people are part of every part of our lives, right? We're parents, we're siblings, we're postal workers, we're nurses, we're leaders, we're political leaders. We're all parts of every facet of life. And when you put your name on the ballot, that's the first time somebody will even consider electing a trans person into leadership in their lives. And that is powerful. That is visibility. And how you show up in your community is something that you are, privileged to be able to do when you run for office. And I'll say this as my last point. As trans people, we have to suffer a lot. Like we were just talking on the last caller just now about the possibility of getting your name put on a list because you purchased a firearm legally. Or we were talking about different things that we have to suffer through, losing the access to gender affirming care, experiencing unemployment, experiencing homelessness, like all of these things that trans people already have to have the burden. But to run for office is also a special type of suffering that you're putting yourself through. And the fact that you are willing to raise your hand and say, yes, I'm going to run for office, gives you a privilege to suffer, because you are suffering even more so to put yourself in the public eye, on top of already suffering as a trans person, because other people don't have that opportunity to do so. So it's a huge honor and burden at the same time to be able to run as a trans person. So those are the things you have to weigh out. Like, So I know I just threw a lot at you, but like I literally give weekend long trainings on this particular topic about being trans on the trail. But this is just kind of like a taste of things to think about when you're running. And also, I would highly, highly recommend applying to do some type of candidate training program that kind of gives you the rules of the road of what to expect on the trail as a candidate, regardless if you're trans, like fundraising, like getting out, getting the vote out, talking to vendors, hiring staff. All of those things are part of it. And so you should be able to get a little bit of training to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how difficult it is to run for office when it comes to the machinations of it. You're almost like you're essentially just a startup when you run a campaign. And there's a lot of things that are involved in that. Like, I've raised a little over $150,000 for my campaign, for example, and that money has to go places, and I have to make sure I spend that money right so I can have a good opportunity to win. So there's a lot there, Connie. I'll let you respond.
No, that's kind of about what I was kind of looking to hear. Because I already do have my whys. I specifically just want to bring more clean energy to the community and want more green spaces and helping our homeless population of where I am. So I already have a why, but yeah, I will have to look more into those classes. I've kind of looked at them here and there, but I haven't really put much thought into that aspect of
Yeah,
basically being a
for
political
sure.
upstart.
That's essentially what you have to do. And in the meantime, before you even start running, make sure you're getting involved locally in your community. Go to, whatever local party that you're a part of. If they're doing events, go to fundraisers where other political people are. Start making friends. I say in politics, relationships are the currency. Um,
Just so you
and
know.
and yeah, yeah. So you want to go to places, you want to go and be involved in clubs. You want to figure out where the political nerds are. Start interacting with those folks because they'll give you the lay of the land of what is likely and who's in power or who's thinking about running. It's important to kind of be involved in the political ecosystem of the people who are in power now, so you can kind of know what you're up against. Because if you just kind of just burst into the scene and saying I'm running for office but don't know the local political like operation that is existing in the space, you're going to jam people's toes, and that people are always more likely to be more reserved about supporting somebody they've never met before rather than somebody who has already been visible in the community doing the work. So make sure you're going around and talking to folks and being involved and talk to people who you may not like, right? You may be thinking about running against certain people. Like, go into the spaces that they are and start interacting with people in that space, because in the game of politics, you're going to have to interact with people that you may not particularly like. And it's frustrating, but that's what you have to do when you're building coalitions, is you have to try to make relationships with folks that may not agree with you, like 70% of the time, but in those points where they do agree with you, that 30%, you want to be able to push them into the position that you need them to be. It is a very, very complex process. And so it's a lot of things that you have to think about. Again, this is my life, and I've been doing politics now for nearly 20 years. So it is something that, I put a lot of thought into, but I'm really excited that you're considering running for local office, because that's really where the rubber hits the road.
Well, thank you. That's kind of it
Yeah.
for all I had.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Connie. Jack, do you have anything to add?
I mean, I would just kind of second and co-sign like everything you said. Like my entire channel is mostly about covering politics, and what I've observed is, you gotta get involved in your community in a visible way, and specifically in that political community, because not only do you need to learn the lay of the land so you can make good allies, but those allies can also really be useful to you. Like the other people knowing who you are can open doors that you never could have dreamed would be opened to you. And like a focus on material benefits for any kind of campaign is going to be incredibly important, especially on like the local level. I think like we tend to see coverage on the national level, and that can kind of take on like a sort of symbolism that doesn't necessarily translate on the local level, because on the local level, people want clean water. People don't want, their property values driven down by like an AI data center that's like creating a unsustainable amount of noise in their neighborhood. Like people want to be able to live in their communities, and like that's what they care about primarily when it comes to like local stuff. So especially when you're running on the local level, focusing on what you can do for the community and how your policies are going to help people, and being able to work alongside the people who have, in some cases been manning local level political positions for like the last 20, 30 years, uh, winds up being important. And also understanding like you need their cooperation, even if they don't agree with you in lockstep on every single issue. It's one of the difficulties of doing politics, but Josie was incredibly correct about everything that she said. So listen to Josie, and best of luck. Love to see a fellow Minnesotan getting politically engaged.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, wonderful. All right,
Yeah.
Connie, have a great rest of your day, okay? And good luck. And hopefully I'll see
All right.
you out in the trail. All right.
And good luck to the rest of your calls today, guys.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. All right. Bye.
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 Okay. All right. Great. That was fun. Feels like I was more felt like a work call. It's like, all right, these are the
Time to
No, I
consult on
love
another political campaign. Let's go.
yeah, exactly. No, I enjoy it though. I am a glutton for punishment and love politics so much, and I don't know why. There's just I just like honestly, I don't know why. But somebody's got to take out the trash, right? Somebody's got to
Yeah.
push the sludge to the pipes. But
Speaking
that's
of, hey, if you guys are watching right now, because I'm looking at the chats here, I'm seeing a lot of really big talk from a lot of very smart people in the chat who are making some very big and audacious claims. I'd love it if you guys called in to try and, I don't know, back any of that up. Like
yeah.
I would love if you guys were able to find some bravery somewhere in your general vicinity, and call in and stand up for what you really believe is right, which is definitely
Yeah.
not just rank bigotry.
No, couldn't be that. So
Couldn't
call
be.
in. Call in at 720-619-2288. And again, if you're just listening, it is 720-619-2288. Call in. We're very excited to hear from you. And this is a space where, you could talk to actual live trans people. I noticed that, on other shows on the line, all of the transphobes go and talk to like the cis men on the show, and I like let's actually put your arguments to the test with people with lived experience of being trans people, because boy, we hear a lot of big talk, as Jack put it. So let's see how that actually goes. Great. So, do you want to go ahead and it looks like an advice call. Do you want to take that really quickly before some of the other folks call in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So we are calling. So we have Erin calling. They from Texas. You are live on the line with Jack and Josie. How are you today? It looks like you want to talk about advice for trans folks who live with unsupportive family. Tell us about it.
Yeah. I'm doing okay. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing
Doing
all
great.
right.
But yeah, I guess my question was, I'm a trans girl who lives with my mom, and I guess technically my grandma. I see her a lot, but she's not in town all the time. But I accidentally came out to my mom, um, and she's not really. She's, I guess, trying to be supportive, but she's not because she's religious, right? So I guess my question was, how does someone like me who's trans who isn't able to like move out yet? I don't have the money to. What's some advice to be able to get along or at least live cordially with my mom so that it's not just always tension, you know?
I mean that's a tall order because you have already kind of like that what you've talked about is already a tension, and so like the fact that you've acknowledged it exists, it's going to continue to exist until either you remove yourself from that situation, which of course or your mother like kind of begins to be more accepting, and that may happen sooner or later, but you have no way of being able to know when that's going to happen. And that's difficult. I was in a very similar situation years ago, and I totally relate. It is incredibly uncomfortable and incredibly difficult and hard. And I sought to make it easier by continuing to, do boy mode and like continuing to like be closeted in order to not rock the boat too much. And in retrospect, I'm not convinced that was the best option. I'm not convinced that that was necessarily good or healthy for me. And I guess my advice would be like make a definitive plan on how you're going to get out that you can like take actionable steps towards and like move in that direction, because then at the very least you're building momentum, you are taking action, you are expressing some agency, and it'll help you feel less stuck, and that will give you maybe a bit more strength to get through that uncomfortable tension that you found yourself in.
Yeah. So Aaron, I want to just also say, safety is paramount. So you have to do what you can to basically, like Jack said, take steps on how you feel. But so I've had, I have a, my biological father who is, complete jerk and, completely like don't I have no contact with. I also came out when I was 34 years old, so I'm in a very different situation. I was already self-reliant and sustainable once I left, once I came out as trans. However, at first, it was hard for my mother to kind of understand things. My mother is also spiritual and religious. But I want to ask you, so when you have conversations with your mother, is it pure rejection or is it a fear that you are going to be in danger?
See, that's the weird thing, is that it feels like she like tries to accept it to some extent, but it almost okay. Like she says stuff like, she doesn't hate me. She's trying to kind of work with me or wants me to be happy. Like, but she's very dismissive of the idea of me taking like estrogen or anything like that. And she still misgenders me a lot, which I've brought up to her how it feels, but she's like, basically in her mind, she's like, well, you were born a boy, so that's what you are. I don't really care, I guess it's like this weird mix of like her trying to kind of be accepting, but also being stuck. And it's like sometimes I see her being more progressive, and sometimes I see her going back to that stuck part. So for me, I don't really know which one is like more like it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, no. I think that's important. And so here is like my thoughts. And again, this is my own personal experience, trying to mirror onto what you may deal with. So I always say, like, when I first came out with my mom, I think my mom's fear was that my life was going to essentially be over. Like essentially like everything that I've been fighting for career-wise was all going to kind of fall apart because she understood how bigoted the world is outside. So and you know in her eyes, at least in my interpretation, she was trying to protect me from the world outside and you know it was, I always like to say, the bigotry came from a loving place, right? And it's like a really weird thing to say, but that's kind of where my mom kind of landed on. It took her a while to get my pronouns and everything right over time. And I get it, right? Like, you know, she has known you as, you know, someone use different pronouns for you for so long, it's going to take longer. Now,
Mhm.
I don't want to make it an excuse, but older folks tend to take longer to get around the things that are very, very big and starkly different. So I would give time and patience to that part. Um, I think in a lot in my own personal experience with my family, I think once I was on hormones and lived my life and you know grew into the person that I am, it became very obvious of like, oh, this is just who you are, right? I think there is always a grain of like maybe this is just a phase that kind of creeps into the minds of parents that don't want to kind of like know that this is an actual thing that sticks. And a lot of that comes from different places, right? Misinformation of like, you know, even my mom is like, "Is you sure this isn't rapid set gender dysphoria?" I'm like, I'm 34 years old. Like, this is not something that happened rapidly. And you know, so she was just trying to give guidance in the way that she understood that she could in the way that she felt was love. And so there is a moment where it becomes untenable and it just won't work. And then that is hard, but there also patience and being able to live your truth long enough around your family, or if you do happen to leave and are out and then you know have access to your health care, then when you come back and you know come back as your full more authentic self of who you are, how you feel externally as well as socially, and like getting more comfortable in your own skin, um your family who love you will see it. And if they don't have unconditional love like my biological father, then that is just kind of the way things are. Like, but there are some parents that don't have unconditional love. I'm sorry, it's just not how it is. But I think that a lot of parents do, and they have to get over their own internal bigotries to get around to the part that is the most important, is that they love you. um it's just but it's your choice to be as patient as you want to be, because it's not on their timeline, it's on your timeline. But if you care about that relationship, it's going to take a massive amount of patience on your part. And it's just kind of how I felt it. But again, everybody's experience is different. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think that does make sense. Um, I guess I do kind of feel like a little bit of separation from them will kind of let them be able to process it more. Because I guess that's part of it. I feel like it's probably hard for my mom to process it when I'm still like here next to her and like she's seeing that my clothes are changing and all that sort of stuff. So you know, and like you were saying when you're talking about boy moding, I tried for a long time to boy mode. I kind of just dress androgynously now. I guess is kind of the best of both worlds.
Mhm.
But I think that for the time being, I've been trying to be very patient with her. It's just sometimes, you know, since we're still next to each other all the time, we still have to think about like, oh, what are we gonna cook together for dinner? What are we, et cetera, et cetera. It's
Yeah.
I think there's more tension because she has to kind of process it in real time, you know.
Yeah,
But I think I
and
100% agree that
yeah.
whenever I go and come back, it will be different.
And it is difficult to watch someone you love processing that big life change, especially when that process can be really messy. You know, my mom, when I came out, was sort of supportive, but she had to go through a period that was deeply uncomfortable for me, where she would talk to me openly about, you know, feeling like her child had died. Like, and I'm like, Mom, I'm right here. And she's like,
Yeah,
well,
that's
I
what my
feel
mom does. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and that's unfortunately not an uncommon thing for a lot of parents of trans kids to go through. Kind of this period of like mourning the person they thought you were, I guess, the person they'd built up in their head, which is not now validated by reality. And like that, I found it to be very, very uncomfortable and off-putting to like experience that processing, like
Hmm.
from like right next to her. And so
Yeah.
it, I totally understand that that could be incredibly difficult to navigate. And just to echo something Josie said, like this is all on your own time. You know, you get to decide how much is bearable, how much you can take on any given day, and you have the right at any moment to just be like, I'm I'm gonna leave the room. You know, I'm gonna go someplace else so you can have this time by yourself, so that you know you aren't being put in kind of this uh, you know, smoking hot cast iron pan to like just burn
Hmm.
for somebody else's sake,
Mhm.
because she doesn't need you to process the feelings and thoughts she's having, and you don't have to suffer in order to try and facilitate that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Um,
does make sense.
yeah, and time is like, look, I didn't talk to my mother for almost a year and a half, and it hurt. It hurt both of us. And it was something that she had experienced. I even took almost a year to talk to my sister, which I thought was hard as well because I wasn't expecting that. But eventually, with my sister's case, it was like she called me up and she was like, I'm tired of being mad at you. And I'm like, great, I don't want to be mad at you either. And now you was like, well, I always wanted a sister anyway. And I'm like, yeah, I've always been. Right. And now she does this cringy thing that I love it, but I hate it. But when she introduces me to her people that in her life, because we live so far apart, she's in Texas, she goes, oh yeah, I have a brister. And she's like, what's a brister? It's like, oh, it's my brother who's now my sister. And she won't say that to my face, but she says that to kind of be lighthearted about it. But my sister is kind of goofy like that. And it's how she now comes around to it because she thinks that that's a very important part of my journey, and our relationship is stronger because of it.
Mm.
And so for me, it's like how we are with our family is going to be unique to all of us. And however you find that comfort within your family is a good thing. And if your parents truly love who you are, they will come around to it. Or you will be like my biological father, who says that he has a dead son, and will never speak of me, and is completely just his loss, right? I really don't care at this point. And so, but for my mother, it's like, she'll call me up now being like, why is Trump doing this? What is the deal with the passports? Or it's like, you're obviously a woman, this is putting you in danger. I'm like, exactly. But again, I've been out for 6 years now, and I am very different than I was was 6 years ago when I was first coming out. And my mother didn't even understand that trans people can, get medication and, get the, basic health care that allows us to walk through the world without hassle in a lot of ways for some of us. And I would even say for all of us, we all have that option of healthcare. And I think that a lot of family members don't understand that trans people are not the caricature on the right-wing meme or religious meme that they put out. It's like we're not those people. And so when they are confronted with somebody that is so close to them and they're like, this isn't what a trans person is. This is my daughter, my child. Like this is and eventually what happens is that cognitive dissonance has to come to a reckoning, and it either goes in the right direction where they get to keep their child in their life, or it goes in the negative direction and you never speak to them again. But it sounds like to me, Aaron, that your family, or your mother at least, is on the right path, because the little ounce of that she's trying, and those points where she doesn't hit the right name or pronoun, can be just temporary, as she is just getting used to it.
hmm Yeah,
So it's not easy though.
I didn't. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was done.
Oh, yeah, I tend to think that she's going to be the type who eventually accepts it, and kind of like, in a weird way. I don't know how if she's gonna be as like open to, I guess amicable is the right word, as your mom was, but I feel like she's gonna go down that sort of direction.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, Aaron, the best of
Well,
luck.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thank you
yeah.
for sharing. And, I wish you the best, and I hope that the best for you and your family and your relationship.
And
Thank
I would
you.
just add
And
one last thing, like really make a plan, and like that
mhm,
has actionable steps to get you closer to a point where you can be independent. Because
mhm,
when you start feeling stuck, and I know from experience that I hit many points where I felt stuck, having actionable things that I could do helped me to feel unstuck and gave me hope for a pathway out of my situation. So hopefully that
mhm.
can help you too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that does.
Well,
Well,
thank you, Aaron. I hope
thank
you have a
y'all
very good.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Take care of yourself. Have a great rest of your
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Y'all have a good one.
You too. Bye. All right, so we ready for a fun call? Let's go ahead and take Dylan, he, him, 24 from Missouri. And it looks like you think it was Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. Tell us about it.
Of course, of course. And hi, what was your names?
My name is Josie, and we're here with Jack.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, hi, Josie and Jack. So, I believe that Jesus created us and that our bodies are not our own, man and woman. That it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. That Jesus created us, that our bodies are not our own, man and woman. And I believe that the devil is causing the confusion with man and woman. Like why a boy is saying that he's a girl and a girl is saying that he's a boy, especially at a very young age. Like at a very, very, very young age when their brains are not developed. I believe that the devil is causing that confusion, especially
Okay.
like for young children
Okay,
whose brains are not developed.
Can I ask you, how is the devil causing this confusion?
How is the devil causing this confusion?
Yeah.
The devil is causing this confusion by lying.
But like literally whispering to children? Like
Yes,
children are
yes.
hearing
What the Bible
voices
says is that.
telling them to like transition?
So the Bible says that Jesus, like, he gives us the good word because, like, he's a shepherd, but the devil immediately comes to steal like our shepherd from us. So yes,
So,
literally,
but like
the
when,
devil.
when the
But
Bible,
wait,
when
Dylan.
the Bible says that, Dylan, do you think it means literally that like Satan's a guy coming to steal sheep? Like, what is the mechanism? I guess I'm asking. I'm
Yeah,
asking
how
what
do we-
you think the mechanism is that allows Satan to like interact with children.
Exactly what you said. That he's a guy like Satan. Immediately comes to steal the word.
Okay, so like
Steal
Satan
what
is like
word?
like guys like satanic like Satan is like going up to children and telling them you need to be trans.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
a fallen angel. Literally
So
like
could
that.
that have happened to you, Dylan? Could that have happened to you? Did Satan come to you and say you should be trans when you were young?
Yes, the
He
devil.
did.
He taught
How
me
did
to
that
hire
happen?
prostitutes.
But how,
Oh, okay, so,
so
the
can you
devil-
explain to me when you were young, when the devil came to you and asked you to be trans?
Oh, okay. For me, my situation was that the devil, he caused me to hire prostitutes. So when I was very
When
young,
you were a kid?
like very,
When you were a child?
very young, like very, very young, like
You're already
very young.
very
I
young.
was
You're
hiring-
24 now. How young are we talking about here?
like I don't even want to talk about it, but very young, I was hiring prostitutes because the devil caused me to do that.
Wait, so
Like,
who was the devil? Who is
Yeah.
the devil that caused you to do that? That's
Yeah.
because for me, it's like, okay, so Dylan, I am trying to actually figure this out, right? Because if you feel that like a devil, a being came and is going out there, I want to know the proof behind that. Because that sounds like a very serious thing, and that proves more than just the devil trying to. I really am very curious on. Are you saying the devil as a metaphor, or are you saying like an actual entity that came to you and said hire prostitutes?
No, I'm saying that your creator is Jesus, and that there's literally an adversary of God, and that
No,
this is the devil.
we're asking
Wait,
you for
no,
in your circumstance when you hired prostitutes, did a literal guy walk up to you and say, "Dylan, you gotta hire some prostitutes," or was it some other mechanism?
No, like what you said, a literal guy, and this world belongs to Satan, and so
What did he look
like
like?
he looks to not the
Yeah,
thing.
I'm very curious, Dylan. Like you said, it's an actual guy. That's a big statement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you look like? Just so I can know if like a random stranger walking by is the devil or not.
Of course. So the human world, the entire human world, is in the hands of the Satan. So what does he look like?
But what
He's
is
the god
that?
of this world.
So who
like,
is
what
the
does
god
that
of
look
this
like?
world? So wait, I thought there was only one God. I'm getting confused, Dylan, because like you're bringing in a lot of different words into this conversation, right? And so when we're talking about, you're talking about lies and things like that, but like you're saying a lot of things that look, I was raised Roman Catholic. I was actually Pentecostal for a while. Then I was also just a spiritual religious person. I've read the Bible cover to cover, and there's a lot of interpretations that happen when you think about these things. So like when you say there is a God of this world, I thought the only God was the God of the Bible, the Christian Bible. So now I'm very confused about where is the lie.
Okay. Let's say like I'm the devil. Like I'm a literal guy.
Wait,
I'm a literal
how
guy.
do we know you're not the devil?
How would I know I'm not the devil? Let's
How
say
do
I
we
am the
know you're
devil.
not
I'm
the
a literal
devil?
guy.
You just said you're
But
like
how would
the devil's a literal guy, and so
Yeah.
you're a literal guy. So how do we know you're not the devil, Dylan?
Yeah. Let's say I'm the devil. Like what you
Okay.
said, like a literal guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
let's
mean,
say
like
it.
a physical, like guy,
A human
Like you could
person.
reach out and touch him, like a human type guy. Like maybe a human guy, but like has red horns and like a cape and a pitchfork. Like I want to
Swirly
know
eyebrows.
what to
No,
look
that's not
for
accurate.
and how to
No,
know
that's not
I'm not
accurate.
talking to the devil right now.
How do you know you're not talking to the devil? Exactly how
Yeah.
you are right now, like flesh and blood. Exactly that's the devil too. Like exactly how you are, flesh and blood.
Are you
Okay,
saying
so-
all
is the devil.
humans are devils? All humans are devils.
What? No.
Are you
Let's
saying
say I'm
all
the devil,
humans are
like,
devils?
Yeah, I want to know
No,
if I'm
no, no,
talking
no.
to the devil right now.
Let's say I'm the devil and you're talking to the devil. Like I'm the god of this
No, just
human
let me
world.
know.
I'm
Like,
the
first
god
of all, let's just start off. Are you the devil?
no.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. So how can we tell if someone we're talking to is or is not the devil? We need to tune our devil detectors here, Dylan.
Your creator is Jesus, and the adversary of God is the devil. So how would you tell if it's the devil? By your
Yeah.
creator, which is Jesus.
Well, I don't have a direct communication line to that. So look, okay. So I came out as trans at 34 years old. Do you think that a person like or a devil came to me and whispered into my ear to make me trans?
Not even like that, but exactly like that. The devil,
Oh,
a
wait,
literal
but
person, came to you.
okay, a literal person. I can tell you right now that nobody told me to be trans.
He wanted to be
I
like God, and so like
I guess wait.
so nobody
So
came to you to
Dylan, I'm still a bit hung up on the previous stuff, which I feel like we need to get past in order to talk about more things. But like the Bible says even demons believe and tremble. So even if you're talking to us about Jesus, how do we know you're not lying to us and you are the devil?
how do you know I'm not the devil, that I'm not lying to you?
Yeah.
How do you know I'm not lying to you? Yeah, am I the devil? I'm a man, not the god of this world.
How do
The
I know
devil is the
that?
god of the human world.
The God of this world could wear many faces, right?
But like what you say, he's a literal guy. He's a literal guy.
Yeah, you said he's a literal guy.
Yeah, you're saying is a literal guy. Like,
Yeah.
so can we identify where the devil is? I mean, Tucker Carlson said that the devil could be Donald Trump as the Antichrist because he speaks in religious systems. He put his image of himself as Jesus. He holds up the Bible but upside down. He says he's religious but never goes to church. He thinks that he's going to hell. Like, could I interpret him as just a guy that's the devil?
I would say to that your creator is Jesus, and since Donald Trump thinks he's going to hell, like, I have so much faith in Jesus. Like, your creator is Jesus too, and if Donald Trump
But
thinks that he's going to hell, then no, he's not. He's neither. Like,
isn't that where
then
the
no.
devil lives?
Well, wait,
Doesn't the devil rule
no,
hell?
the devil might be here right now, Josie. We still
Oh.
haven't established that Dylan is not the devil. The devil is very devious and works in duplicitous ways. So I want to know, how are we supposed to know Dylan isn't the devil? He's being very clever right now, slipping through these questions, and I haven't tuned my devil dar. Okay, well, Dylan, how do we know you're not the devil? Like, we need to establish that you're at actual authority that we can trust. Otherwise, you might just be trying to tempt us and trick us with devilish trickery.
Am I tempting you? No. And what I would say to this,
I mean, you
like,
might be.
I
You might be tempting the long game.
Yeah, you could be trying to
no.
tempt us to not be who we are,
It could be
right?
a
Like, I
long-term
think
investment.
I like, for example, I think a devilish thing would be to tell somebody who's happy with who they are, like a trans person, and then try to convert them to be unhappy would be a very devilish thing. Because if I was created, then I was created to be this trans woman here. So the devil would tell me to not be that, to be depressed and to want to not be alive. So for me, that's how I view it. Dylan, if you are trying to say that trans people shouldn't exist, then that is essentially denying my happiness, which is what the devil would do, correct?
Your creator is Jesus, though.
Regardless, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't
But
the devil?
the devil would
Would
say
it-
that.
Yeah, wouldn't the
That's
devil
exactly
say?
what the devil would say.
Yeah, because the devil would essentially say that you're created a different way, so don't be happy. Right. So
No,
do you
your creator
understand
is
the
Jesus.
logic behind that? Because if you're trying to say that a trans person shouldn't be trans, but the trans person is happy being trans because that's who they are, it would be a devilish thing to do to try to change that person to be unhappy and living in a way that they're unhappy living. Wouldn't you agree that would be a
You're,
horrible thing to do to somebody? Like to make them
I would
depressed or
agree.
make them no longer live the way they want to live as human beings?
You're making me say that your creator is Jesus, but also that
I'm
you're
not. I'm
not
not.
what you.
Regardless of what is the creator, because I really don't. I'm not interested in that conversation. My conversation and what I'm interested about is, wouldn't it be a devilish thing to do to try to tell somebody that is living their life happy to be unhappy because they're wrong, living the way that they
Let's
are to
say I'm
be
the
happy?
devil. Let's say I'm the devil. Making you think that you're like a boy when you're a woman and a man when you're a woman. Like let's say I'm the devil. Like
How
a
are you
devilish
doing
thing
that?
would be what I'm doing.
But how
What? Yeah,
how
the
are
Bible.
you
devilish
as the
thing.
devil making us
Well,
believe
no,
that?
he said the devilish thing is to tell me
Oh,
that I should be a man when I'm actually a woman. That's what you said, right, Dylan? Like I'm a woman sitting here in
Exactly.
front of you. So therefore, yeah. So the devilish thing to do is to tell a woman like myself who is happy being a woman to be a man instead.
Let's say I'm the devil. I would want you to leave your identity of like what the creator is, which is Jesus, to basically to belong to me, to belong to
Wait,
like
no, that
I
doesn't make
as the devil.
sense. Wait, Dylan, that doesn't make sense because I wouldn't the devil in your characterization of the Christian God devil be happy with me being trans?
Yeah.
Okay. So why would it not be a devilish thing to do to tell somebody who's happy being trans to be unhappy not being trans?
Because Jesus is heaven and heaven is Jesus, and you will not make
So
it to
wait,
heaven
so
unless
Jesus wants me to
you.
be unhappy?
this is
No.
sounding kind of like what the devil would say, Dylan. My devil
Yeah,
dar is
because
beginning to go off.
Because
Beep beep
because
beep
because
beep
it would
beep.
be because it would be really effed up, right? If Jesus was to come in and be like, Josie, I don't care how happy you are, I want you to be unhappy in the body that I tell you to be in. I wouldn't trust that Jesus because that Jesus is essentially telling me to be depressed and unhappy.
Let's say I'm the devil. I'm making you depressed and unhappy.
I'm
You
not
seem
depressed
to
and unhappy.
Dylan,
I'm
you seem
actually
to
very
know a
happy.
lot. You seem to know a lot about what the devil would do here, Dylan.
But do you understand why the argument of trying to say like there's an actual guy being the devil coming in and saying trying to speak lies into my ear, which is not what happened for me to be a trans person. I was born this way. Like for someone to say to me, and I've been told many times as a trans person that they're gonna pray for me and that I was created a certain way and I'm living against that plan and all of that type of stuff. But that plan, whatever, if there was one, would essentially for me to be depressed for the rest of my life or no longer want to even live. So for me, I think the loving thing would allow me to live as the person I am that would be happy, not depressed and sad and upset because at the end of the day, why would a creator put happiness as a trans person on my body? Wouldn't it be better if he would not make me depressed if I was living the gender that I was assigned as a man? Like that doesn't make sense, does
My
it? Why would Jesus be so unloving to me?
uh, Jesus is heaven. Like heaven is like my creator.
That's not an
My
answer. That's not
creator.
an answer, Dylan. I'm asking you a direct question. Why would Jesus make me unhappy because trying to force me to not be a happy trans woman that I am today?
My creator. My
Your
creator.
creator, not mine.
No, he's in you too.
Well, apparently he has a contradicting view Right, because apparently
No.
your point of view of what Jesus created me is to be unhappy as a man rather than happy as a trans woman, which is not
He's
my
inside you too.
view.
So there's
But
wait, Dylan, there's a man inside of all of us.
The man Jesus Christ.
So, like, trans men are valid. They're just embracing their true inner identity, right? In Christ.
You're just embracing your true inner identity, but we're not under the laws of the Bible. We're under the grace of my
Satan.
Creator.
That's
So-
right. Ah, I've caught you, devil. That's right. My devil dar never misses.
never
Dylan.
misses.
Dylan,
Yeah.
devil, very similar. Not even a
Yeah.
good disguise.
Like Dylan, we're not trying to completely like poke fun at you. It's the reality of the fact is like your argument doesn't hold up to the scrutiny of the fact that as a human being, as a trans person myself, I am incredibly happy. I'm a good person. I try to help as many people as possible in my life. I'm very content with who I am, and the idea
But your
that
Creator is Jesus. But your
it doesn't
Creator is
matter.
Jesus.
And the thing is, even if which I reject that, but even if I were to give you that argument, because you're positing you when you came onto this call, you were like, you're created in the image to tell a man that they're a woman and all of this and speaking whispers in the people's ears. But that doesn't comport with the lived experience and the reality that me as a trans woman is a happy human being, while when I wasn't a trans woman, I was on death's door and not a very depressed human being. So why would it be in the best interest of this creator, even if I were to grant you that I need to be unhappy for the rest of my life? Because for me, I think it would be very devilish to say, no, you're wrong, you're supposed to be depressed because that's the way it was made. That's fucked up. Wouldn't you agree?
I disagree.
You disagree. So you agree. So your thought is that I should be unhappy. That some other people can be happy as men, or if they were born, assigned male at birth, like they can be happy, or women that were born a female at birth, they can be happy. But trans people, they're meant to be depressed because we're supposed to force them into something that makes them unhappy. That doesn't seem very, very nice. That doesn't seem very good.
Wait a minute, Dylan. I'm just spitballing here, okay? What if Satan convinced the doctors to assign the wrong gender?
Not a real thing.
What?
Wait,
He's
that's
the
not
god
real?
of this world and he can't convince doctors to lie?
Yeah, that's weird.
Weird.
And so Dylan, do you understand why it's like that none of this holds up to scrutiny? Because the lived experience of trans people all over the world,
A man
are
cannot
happy.
get pregnant. That's brainwashed.
Hey,
a man cannot
hey,
get pregnant.
Dylan,
But
Dylan. Hey, do you know what the Bible says about the church
I know that a man
and its
cannot get pregnant.
relationship with Jesus Christ?
Say that again.
Do you know what the Bible says about the church and its relationship with Jesus Christ?
Yeah, my Creator.
Okay, so you go to church. You are a church-going man?
Nah.
No, you're not part of like the community that is one in Jesus Christ?
No.
No. Dylan, that's literally
something Satan
heretical.
would say.
Yeah, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
So yes, a trans man can get pregnant. Just because your definition of man is different, like I don't understand. Like, but anyways, you were being very heretical there.
Like you are heretical.
Give me the floor. Give me the floor.
No,
so,
wait. No, Dylan. I need to finish my train of thought. I can't allow your satanic lies to triumph over good in this situation. I'm sorry. Okay, so are you
Give me
familiar
the
with the
floor. Give me
term
the
the
floor.
bride of? Are you familiar with the term the bride of Christ?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
One in Jesus, that he, by the washing of the word, saved basically those that are one in Jesus.
Yeah, that by being part of like the church, the spiritual construct of the church, you are in effect a bride of Jesus Christ. How do you feel
You're
about
talking
being
about
transed by the Christian Bible?
You're talking about that there's neither man or woman, Jew or Greek, that all are one
Yeah,
in Jesus, but I disagree with
God
you.
stole your gender.
No, you're talking about that Bible verse, which is that there's neither man or woman, Jew or Greek, but all are one in Jesus. I disagree with
I'm
you.
also talking about the bride of Christ,
Yeah.
which is the church. This is pretty well established in theological circles. It's also directly mentioned in the Bible, in the New Testament.
And brides are women, right?
Are you not a bride of Christ, Dylan?
You're the bride of Christ. I'm the bride of Jesus.
I mean, I am the bride of Christ. I'm a wonderful lady. Are you the bride of Christ?
Like you, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you are, in essence, a woman in this case, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Great.
Dylan, welcome to the trans community.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Dylan, it was fun, and we really got somewhere today. We understand that the devil is just some dude, and
A
that
literal dude. No, a literal dude.
a literal
Yeah.
a
A
literal
literal
dude,
dude.
which literal meaning actually, like in this context, like some just random guy. But anyways, appreciate your call, and good luck out there. Hopefully, when I'm still a little sussed out. You might be the devil yourself. I'm not sure, because
Yeah.
you
Don't go
want
tempting
me
folks, Dylan. Don't
Yeah,
go tempting folks on our watch.
don't be whispering
Am I the
lies,
devil?
trying.
Am I the devil?
Maybe.
You didn't
tempting-
establish that you weren't.
Yeah, I mean, you do want me to be unhappy, which is what I think the devil would want. So you're very clear on that you want all trans people to be.
What you want. Yep.
Yeah,
that's what he would want.
he wants all trans people unhappy. Yeah,
You know
yeah.
a lot about what the devil would want. A suspicious amount about what the devil would want, Dylan.
Suspicious about.
But
All right,
thank you
Dylan.
so much for calling in.
All right, talk to you later. That was fun. All right, bye. My God. I let that go. We let that go on too far, but
I know, but I was having so much
yeah.
fun being a devil detective.
Yeah. All right. So Jack, there's two people on. There's 24-2 and then 25-3. Are you looking at the call-in list?
Yeah.
Which one do you want first?
Honestly, I'm happy with either. I guess 24-2.
Okay, we'll go with that. So we're gonna bring in Bradley, him, from Indiana, wants to bring up the counter argument that Jesus wants me to be happy. So tell us about it.
Hi, yes. My name is Bradley. I'm actually from Idaho. I probably didn't.
Oh,
say
Idaho.
that
I
well
apologize. Yeah, no, it's my fault.
No, it's okay.
I said it wrong.
No,
I said
it's all
Indiana
good.
when it's obviously Idaho.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that. But so, the reason I just wanted to counter that Christ doesn't necessarily, like, the point isn't for me to be happy all the time or happiness. I know that in the fruit of the Spirit, it talks about joy, and joy can be part of happiness. I was able-bodied up until I was 23, and then I was hit by a car, lost my legs, became partially paralyzed.
I'm so sorry.
Bound to a wheelchair. And I really do struggle at times with depression, because I know what I used to be able to do, and I'm not able to do that now. But I found that Jesus Christ, his sacrifice on the cross, all that stuff has been a part of why I am still alive, why I do feel joy, feel peace, patience, all of those things. And I'm not saying that you being trans the way that you were born, that you should still remain that way. If what you're feeling is truly something that you want to pursue and you find peace and joy and happiness in that, I do still believe that Christ is still loves you, still looks at you as his child. Like, I don't believe that you're condemned, that you're going to go to hell, all those kind of things. And I know a lot of people, especially Christians, come at you guys very harshly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that, Bradley, because the caller before you does think that we're condemned, right? That we are tricked by a literal guy that is the devil whispering into our ears to make us trans. And yeah, that was tongue in cheek when we were talking before. But even there for trans people and queer people in particular, we are thrown a lot of hateful rhetoric from people who posit themselves to be religious or Christian themselves, and it's exhausting. True. Right. It's incredibly exhausting for, people that, oh, I'm going to pray for you so you can find who you really are. And it's like, it's so disrespectful to the journey that I have had as an individual to get to where I am, religious or not. And so I do appreciate you saying that, who we are is our choice, and we should deserve, human rights, because, that's just who we are
100%.
as people. Yeah. And I'm so sorry to hear about your accident, but I am also happy to hear that you've learned to be able to be comfortable with who you are and, live your life with, the new reality of which you've had to deal with for, quite some time. And so I do appreciate that. I will say, I am not a religious person. Like I said on the call before, I used to be, I was raised Roman Catholic. I was Pentecostal for a short period of time. And then I was just like religious in a way that was spiritual, and I've read the Bible cover to cover, and it just did not serve me. But that does not change the fact that I'm a good person and I want to do good by my neighbor and be kind and, loving to all and trying to support others. It's just that, for me, religion doesn't have to be central to my life. And I just and so for me, I guess, like with that last call, it's like when people are trying to preach to us to say, oh, you're this and you're a creator and Jesus is inside of you and all that type of stuff. Regardless of how a person believes, it's not kind when people are just like, this is who you are and this is what you need to be, and so yeah, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I despise organized religion. I despise organized Christianity because it has abused what Christ has intended. It's abused the Bible. I mean, I have people coming up to me saying God's gonna grow me a new leg. Like, what?
Oh,
am I
God.
a fucking lizard here?
Yeah.
Like, am I just gonna grow a new limb? Like, where in the world and in the history of the world have you ever seen that? And so I think that a lot of times people who are religious feel like, oh, I'm doing the right thing by preaching to you, by judging you, condemning you. They're, in essence, I believe, condemning themselves. And a lot of times it's that hatred that's coming towards you, guys, is because part of them, I think, likes it. It's like a secret, those white guys that are despise gay people, but secretly they're doing gay stuff. I think that can be very similar with a lot of religious people, that if they were in that religion, they would probably, go towards being trans or those kind of things. And I think if we take the individual out of it and their who they are and what they've been through, it's going to take away any argument or any connection, and all it does is cause hatred and division.
Yeah.
Well,
Brad,
I'm sorry you guys go through that.
Just to add my 2 cents here, I grew up in fundamentalist Christianity, and like I tried really, really hard for a very long time to be exactly what it demanded of me. I was a pretty model uh, character within the church, and ultimately, like it was not sustainable for me to continue to exist that way, you know. And it reached a point where like I had to make a choice whether or not I would live, and I chose to live. And I know that that is very much the point of view that a lot of trans people are forced to come to because of the pressures society puts on us to conform, right? And like I appreciate that your religious belief helped you to find meaning in your suffering. I know suffering can be really difficult to navigate in particular. And you know, I don't share that religious belief anymore. And I'm not compelled to. I don't have good arguments to gravitate towards your position on religious matters, but I do hope you continue to learn, you continue to keep an open mind, you continue to grow, because I think that those things are paramount for everybody as we go through life.
Yeah.
And
Very true.
I think like the open-mindedness you've displayed here indicates that you're on a good path to continue to learn about the things you don't understand instead of condemning them. And I encourage you to just keep that open mind. It's really important.
It is very important.
Thank you.
Well, Bradley, thanks for
And thank you
calling
for your
in.
guys'
I
channel.
appreciate you. Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah,
and
thank you.
please again, thanks for calling in, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you, you guys too. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I think we should go with 25-3 next.
Let's
All
do it.
right. Let's go. We're just getting them in there. Hello. This is the Transatlantic Call-In Show on the line. We have Kel, he, him from Missouri on the line. You're live with Jack and Josie. You want to talk about kids shouldn't transition, so tell us about it. Tell us why.
Well, it's not even necessarily because of the kids. It's because I grew up in Washington State, right? And in Washington State, I had many parents approach me, and usually more religious parents, and they would tell me that their kid learned about transitioning at the age of 7 from their teacher, right? And then what would happen is the school would then take away their kid because they wouldn't let them transition, right? And this was more than anything an effort to take away religious people's kids, because it wasn't the non-religious people's kids that were getting this.
Real quick, why would you have parents approaching you on this?
Yeah, that's a weird thing. How, when, and where is this happening?
I was a YouTuber at one point. I would broadcast their stories, and they weren't abusing their kids. They were actually some of the most loving parents there were. And all they said was, if you still feel this way when you're 18, you can transition. But right now, we think that you're just being influenced, right? Because they had never known about trans things until it happened. And then once these meetings happened, first meeting they would be like, "Oh, this kid is definitely trans," and I don't think it's quite that easy.
What was your YouTube channel, Kel? If you don't mind saying.
Most of the videos have been taken down now because of people striking against me, but it was Kelsier Cluster or something like that. It was Kelsier's Cluster F. I don't want to cuss on your channel. I don't know if.
No, it's fine. You can.
I don't know if you allow that. You know.
Yeah, you can cuss.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I did weed reviews in Washington. I did I did several things. It was kind of a clusterfuck, to be honest.
So Cal, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back because like what you brought is, anecdotal evidence, which, we can bring anecdotal evidence from all sides all the time. So let's actually talk about the actual crux of what you were trying to say about kids not transitioning, because the claim you were saying is like the state is using this to take away kids from religious people, which isn't actually the case. It's actually more likely that queer kids will end up in the foster program more likely than not in most cases. So you're saying, I just want to get your claim right. You're saying kids shouldn't transition because they will be taken away from their families? Is that what you're?
No.
Oh, so why?
No.
Why?
I think
why
kids
shouldn't
shouldn't transition specifically because of the fact that there are voices currently on the market, let's say, trying to get them to transition for a political point. And I think maybe later on down the line we might be able to do it, but right now the political situation is just a little bit too tense.
So my question is, so we talk. You remember how you said it's not that easy, and so I want to agree with the point that it's not that easy. You can't just be like, a kid puts on or different clothes one day and then all of a sudden they're trans. Are you familiar with the gender dysphoria diagnosis at all?
I have it.
You have gender dysphoria yourself?
Yes. Yes.
You've been diagnosed by a doctor?
I will clarify that.
But you've been diagnosed by a doctor?
By a diagnostician. I saw a diagnostician all of 10 times, and they said at the end that I do have gender dysphoria.
Okay. How old were you?
Wait, what? When you say you saw a diagnostician, what
you
exactly
mean a therapist or a psychologist?
Yeah, it was a therapist. It was essentially a therapist.
And how old were you, Kel?
I was 18.
Okay, so you were legally an adult.
Yes, I was legally an adult.
So it is a different situation for children. You do understand that, right?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Completely different. It should be completely different.
It is, right? Like we have clinical practices for when a child is diagnosed, or a minor, let's say, is diagnosed with gender dysphoria. It is insistent, consistent, and persistent alignment with the gender that that is not with the gender that they were assigned at birth or their sex they were assigned with birth. It takes years for most cases for a young person to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. A teacher cannot diagnose a kid with gender dysphoria. A school nurse cannot diagnose a kid with gender dysphoria. A school counselor can't diagnose a kid with gender dysphoria. It is a clinical practice and diagnostic that is done over the course of years before a child is given the clinical diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Once that clinical diagnosis happens is when the medical system will kick into gear. If they are below the age of 9 or 10, depending on when they have the first signs of puberty in 10 or 2, then they can get hormone blockers or puberty blockers that are, fully reversible. If they choose to get off of them, they'll go through their normal gender transition of their of what they were born, or they can go on to cross-sex hormones if they so choose. But the reason they do that is so they can have even more years, sometimes 2 to 3 years longer, to make sure that they are 100% right. Now, there is less than a 1% regret rate when it comes to gender transition when this happens, even for youth. And the reason this is because trans community members want to be right about this. It is in the interest of the trans community to not get this diagnosis wrong, because if it was always wrong, then it would affect our ability to be able to show that we are trans and who we are and we need basic health care. So for the trans community, it's in our best interest to not trans everybody, because that's not what everybody needs. It's only 1% of the population that receives this care. So I still don't understand why kids shouldn't transition when there's such a strict process that's already in place.
What I'm seeing in places like Washington, Oregon, or California. That's just
So
not what I'm seeing.
what's the
what
detransition rate
I would complain
there?
about is teachers getting the hormones specifically for somebody.
That's not happening.
That's not
against
happening.
Law.
That's illegal.
That's not happening, Kel.
They would be prosecuted.
It happened in the few cases that I covered. It
Then they're in
happened
jail,
in the few
right?
cases that I covered, and I even
is it
at
anecdotal?
one
Is there
point
criminal
did
cases?
an interview with a kid where he said that on day one, when he first found out about transitioning, he was given hormones, and that kid later found out that he was not trans, and he will never be able to have kids. You know,
Kel,
and it's unfortunate because this is
as trans people,
pleasant
like
man.
I'm a trans adult. I can't just walk up and get HRT. I'm a trans adult. I've been on HRT for years, but like if I run out, I still need to go to my doctor to get more pills, right? There isn't going to be a case where a trans person's just like, hey, here's an entire prescription for HRT, child. That doesn't happen.
It's not true, Kel. And if it was, it would be a national story. Like, do you realize how scrutinized the trans community is? If that was true, Chloe Cole would lose her job because they found a new person to freaking grift off of. This is not a true story, Kel. Whoever told you this either left out a lot of the key points of like blood work, diagnoses, like all of this type of stuff, where like if a school nurse is giving medication to a child, it's because it's doctor prescribed healthcare. Just like a school nurse can't even give a kid Tylenol without permission from the parent. So what you are talking about is a massive scandal, and I have not heard anything about this. I'm a national trans leader. I researched this for a living, and I have never heard about this, Kel. So I would be very suspicious about this story, and I would have done a little bit more journalism to make sure that this is true, because this is not. I do not believe it's true. And there's no evidence to show this is true.
Well, it's kind of hard to present evidence through the phone.
Where's the news story? Where's the news story, Kale? Because there would be a huge news story and a huge lawsuit.
I don't even have my channel anymore. I don't even have access to that channel.
Well, it's not even that. It would be a news story. Would you not agree that this would be a news story? That a school prescribed kids hormones.
I think it depends. I think it highly depends, because in that area it would be very hard.
It
would
depends
be
on the
way
evidence,
higher
Kel.
scrutinized than I did, and it would not be published unless it had 100% proof.
Because it's not true.
That's not something that would be published in Washington. You'd have to go out of state to publish it.
Kel, first of all, okay, I need to step in here, right? Because essentially what you're coming to us with is, I know a guy who told me a story, and like, that's not compelling evidence of anything. And you live in America, you live in the same country we do, you have eyes, you pay attention to stuff. You know that if there was a story like this, every major right-wing grifter on the internet, or Daily Wire host, or, Fox News affiliate, or Newsmax, or Outkick, or an infinite number of conservative publications.
So far, all you've talked about are places
let me finish.
that I look at as nothing more than toilet paper.
Let me finish, right? You know that if this had any even semblance of merit, they would start talking about this nonstop and they would never stop talking about it. And you know that because they did that to countless trans people. Like, just think of what they did to Leah Thomas. They still talk about Leah Thomas. It's been like 5 years. They would be talking about the case you're citing
I don't even
until the end
remember
of
Leah
time.
Thomas. I don't even remember the issue of Leah Thomas.
That was like the swimmer in college sports. Like, anyway, conservatives will do this till the end of time. They're not doing it with this story. And that, I don't imagine it's because, it's so true. They just didn't discover the story. It's probably because the story is bunk, unless you can provide more information. And like, especially when you're saying, like, when this person was a kid, they got hormones from their teacher. Trust me, bro. Again, like, okay,
Yeah.
I know adults who, when they were kids, believed in Santa Claus. Like, that's not proof that Santa Claus exists.
Yeah.
That's not proof that Santa came down their chimneys.
It doesn't, and Kel, it doesn't matter what state it happens in, right? Think about it. Washington State is on the cusp of passing an anti-trans sports bill right now. Like it doesn't matter. It's
Really?
everywhere in every state. Yes, they are. Because of a ballot
I haven't been there in 3 years. I haven't looked up anything for Washington State in quite a while.
So, Kel, do you know that if there was somebody that had that happen to them, it would be blown up all over the media, because trans people are the thing that everybody's talking about all the time in national media when it comes to Republican politics and things of that nature. They literally, like, Donald Trump just signed a memo saying that people who believe in radical trans ideology or transgender ideology, we will find you and we will kill you, was the last sentence on that memo. Like this is the reality, that trans people are under such a high scrutiny right now that if a story like that actually happened, we would not hear the end of it until 2028 presidential election. It would be all over, wall to wall, all over. So I say be more discerning on this, because you just have to be a little critical, because all you have to do is ask a simple question. Oh, really? What school was this? Where, what kind of medication was it? Where, like, that's what you got to do, Kel. You have to investigate further, just like we did to you. When you told us this story, we didn't automatically be like, oh, wow, that's wild. No, we actually said, okay, where is this happening? Who is this person? Where is the news story? Why am I not able to find any information on this? Because it is something that is said out loud with no evidence backing it. Just like there are litter boxes in schools. That doesn't actually happen either, but people make it seem like it's actually real. The litter box story has more news coverage than what you're telling me right now. So how is that a thing that I can take you in good faith and say, oh, that must be true because Kel told me it must be true, when we are two trans people on this call with you right now trying to tell you that we are trying to use clinical diagnoses on how kids and minors and adults can get basic health care for their needs. If it's gender dysphoria, then there's an entire clinical process behind that. It's not teachers handing out medication randomly to kids. That's so absurd.
Well, I guess I have to look closer into this. I'm having trouble understanding you, and I did understand everything you said, but it's cutting out, in and out, and in and out, and in and out.
I'm sorry.
It's like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's on your side. I don't know if I'm making everyone else
I think it might be on yours. I think it might be on your side, because I think it's on your side because nobody in the chat is talking about it, and the chat would be going nuts if that was the case.
But
the chat would be definitely going nuts with what I hear in my ears, so it must be on my side.
But Kel, go get more information and call back.
You probably have more people to disagree with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll call back another time.
All right. Appreciate you.
Having looked into what you've said. Thank
you.
Appreciate. Thanks
for the call.
Oh my gosh, that was wild. It was like, I was like, that was just a claim out of, like, oof, that one
kicked the hornet's nest
deep out of someone's ass. All right, like, so
27.5 or 31.6.
Let's go with 27.5.
Cool.
All right, we have Joe, he, him from New Jersey. You're live on the line with Jack and Josie. What do you want to talk to us about? Your phone may be asleep, so wake up your phone.
Joe, you there?
Hello, Joe from New Jersey. All right, I'm going to return you to queue. We might be able to speak to you in a moment, see if the phone issue fixes here in a moment. We'll try to bring you back in a moment. All right, we'll go with 31.6.
Let's do it.
Hello, Cody, he, him from Wisconsin. You are live on the line with Jack and Josie. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Good.
Howdy.
So you are wanting to call about how how not trans women are women and trans men are men. So yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I lean towards the view slightly that they're not, because it's kind of just the idea that, okay, we can have a meaning like adult human female, that, it seems, I guess it seems somewhat like simple, and everybody doesn't seem to like vary so much on the right when it comes to this definition, but then for the definitions that are sort of proposed like on
Cody,
the left,
do you have us on speaker? Because it's you're kind of sound far away.
Oh, I do. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me try to.
Okay.
You could tell me
That's
if this
much
is
better.
any better right now.
That's much
That is
better.
better.
Can you go ahead and start over on your argument, please? Sorry.
Yep. That's fine. Yep. So it's just the idea that I feel like on the right there's this sort of simple, just adult human female view of woman. And on the left, there's like a bunch of different meanings that I have found or encountered, and just I'm sort of making sort of like a no-see-um inference, like all of the definitions that I've encountered on the left, I can like poke holes in them, or they have counterintuitive conclusions in their definitions. So it seems like I just want to reject the left meanings of the word woman that are trans inclusive, and I just want to stick with the rights. So that's kind of where I'm going down.
All right. So, Cody, let's start then. So, is there a difference between sex and gender?
Yeah.
Okay. What is that difference?
Well, in my worldview, it would just be that gender would be like categorization based off of like species and age and sex, and then sex alone would just be of or like organized around the production of a certain gamete. If that makes sense.
Okay, so sex is so I for the sake of conversation, we'll use your sex definition there, but let's go ahead and go back to your gender definition. Your gender definition had sex in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
So, could you give me a finer point on the definition of gender, or not the definition of gender, but like how gender and sex are different? Because if are you making the claim that they are inextricably linked or sometimes linked? Or
yeah, like, I guess I'd be saying that they're inextricably linked, because like in order to have a gender, it's always going to be like it's going to be hinging on whether like you're a male or female, and then it's also additionally going to be like the age and species.
Okay, so in your definition, you are saying that gender is essentially like sex, correct?
Gender is like sex. I mean, you could say it's like it, but it's not exactly the same, because the same would be A equals A, and this is not A equals A.
Okay, great. So would you say adult human female as the word for woman, right? Like that's what a woman is. You're still tying gender to the sex of female, meaning that there is really no difference.
I don't think that the conclusion that there is no difference follows from that. I think that I mean, you could say that they're
So
similar,
so
but I
so
mean,
so can
I don't think that they're the
can
same.
can a woman can a woman be an adult human male?
A woman cannot be an adult human male, though.
But so how is that not saying that sex and gender are the same?
Because, okay, I'll give one example. Because we could have a female who's an infant, and she wouldn't be a woman, even though she's a female. Or we could have like a female dog, and that wouldn't be a woman.
Regardless, no, I'm talking about human stuff here, and I'm using your definition, right? Because we can talk about, a child female is a girl. Like I just bear with me for the sake of argument here, right? That we're having this conversation. So if adult human female is woman, then that is essentially positing that gender and sex are the same.
I just literally don't think that follows. I think that they could be similar, but it can't be the same. Because if they're the same, then they would be like interchangeable, but they're not.
So tell me the case. So tell me the case that an adult human female is not a woman, then, if it's not the same.
Oh, I think those two things are the same, but adult human female isn't just sex. It also adds a condition of being adult and human. So it's not just sex.
Okay, hold on one second. Sorry, my headphones are going off. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
Okay. Sorry.
I'd love to interject, but I want to let this play out.
Yeah, let this play out. Okay. So let me play it this way for you. Okay. So if for me, when I say sex and gender are different, I am saying that they are different. So the sex definition of what you said was the gamete production, biological, blah, 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 whatever that is, that's sex. But when you talk about gender, I don't use the word sex in my definition of gender because they are different. The gender is like my schema, what I think of a woman is in society. It's a social construct of who we are as a woman. So for example, when you are interacting with a human being out in the world, you're not touching people's genitals to make sure that you call a woman a woman or a man. You are using the social cues of what that person is in front of you to determine someone's gender and how you approach that person. So therefore, it's not necessarily about the sex of the person. It's about how the person is inside of the social construct of the schema of what a woman is. So for me, when I think of sex and gender being different, I think about it in the sense of this. So let me use this logical statement. Okay. It's a logical test. That's what I usually say. So tell me if you agree with the statement. Some coconut trees have coconuts and some coconut trees don't. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the statement that I'm going to do a logical test to show that things are different is some women have penises and some women don't. Do you agree with that statement?
Yep.
You do agree with that statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in that case, so let me do this categorization for you. A black woman, a curly-haired woman, a white woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman. They're all types of women, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that like logical construct, a woman can be somebody that is trans.
A woman can be somebody who's trans. That's true.
Okay.
But I don't think that trans woman, the way that you define trans women, are women, if that makes sense.
But you just told me a trans woman is a type of woman.
No, technically not. I said that a woman can be trans, meaning that I think that you can have an adult human female who...
But the statement that I just said, and I'll repeat the categorization again. A black woman, a curly-haired woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman are all types of women.
No, there I don't agree now, because now you added in trans women, and since trans women are not adult human females, but the rest of the categories were adult human females, I can't agree to that now.
But now, so that means that the statement... some women have penises and some women don't Do you not agree with that statement either?
I still do, because I agree that you can be a female with a penis, just because of, like,
Which is a
the
trans
nature
woman.
of sex. And
Yeah, so that's so
no, I
the
don't
the
think
the, the
think
reason
that would be
the
a
reason
trans.
I say penis, is because that is a biological thing, right? That is you
Mhm.
were talking about the production of gametes and all of that type of stuff. So a penis is the sex portion. The woman is the gender portion. So that's why I use the coconut tree as the logical statement, because a coconut is different from the coconut tree. So in my logical test, the woman is the tree, and the coconuts are the gender. I mean, no, sex. Sorry, the sex. So therefore, the statement, "some women have penises and some women don't," would logically comport with the idea that sex and gender are different.
I don't. So here's the part where I don't think I agree. When you said that, like, the penis is the sex part, but the woman is the gender part, I'm just looking at that all as like one sex part. Like, you have the woman who is a female, and it happens to be a female who has a penis. So the
So
reason
they're
that they're
not
still a
different.
woman is because they're an adult human female.
So they're not different then. Sex and gender are not different. The reason I'm pinning you down on this right now, Cody, is because the idea of sex and gender is critical to the understanding that trans women are women. If you don't agree that there's a difference between sex and gender, that's what the hangup is. Because if we're having a conversation we're talking past each other, right? If your idea of gender is a binary male female, and my idea of gender is the identity of a person who lives in the social schema of the social construction, then we're never going to agree on a shared definition. So therefore, it is impossible to be able to have a conversation of what is a trans woman in the context of a type of woman, because that's my belief, right? A trans woman is a type of woman, just like a cis woman is a type of woman, just like a black woman is a type of woman. It doesn't it's a categorization, and that's why we use the word woman the way we do, because if that group of women were in the corner and they were talking, you would go, "Oh, it's the women in the corner over there." You wouldn't say the women in the corner except for that trans woman, because there would be really no way for
Sure.
you really to know, right? So that's why linguistically we have the word for woman, which is gender and not female, right? That is a sex term. That is something you talk about with the doctor, right? Do they link
Okay.
sometimes? Sometimes they do. It's a 98% of the time it's female, or tend to be women. But in that 2% of the time, it's not that way. And that's why we talk about gender being different from sex. Does that make sense?
Sort of, but I have 2 points of contention. So the first one is I really don't think I'm seeing gender and sex in the same way, because remember, for it to be the same, I'm looking at it just strictly the same, like a logical sense, like A equals A. I'm saying that gender equals female plus adult plus human, and the sex is just the female part, right? So that's one
Maybe.
thing. And then for the Mhm.
Oh, I was gonna say, maybe to address this, I can step in and try and give like an example, right? Like how when you're walking down the street and you see someone walking towards you, how are you assessing whether they are a man or a woman?
It's just like an abductive inference. It's just an inference to the best explanation. So, like, there's going to be different, I'm just going to say, pieces of evidence for that they belong into certain categories. Like wrinkles, it's a pretty good indication that they're an adult. The human thing, it's like, okay, well, just, that's pretty easy to tell, right? They look like you. And then for the female part, I would just probably be looking at like secondary sex characteristics and, other sort of things that are typically associated with, females. And I would just, try to do that to make an inference that they're probably a female, although I could be wrong.
So you're operating off of like, basically incomplete information, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to some extent.
When you are talking about like someone else, you say, "Oh, she," or "Oh, he." I just passed him or her, right? It is basically you are taking a bunch of cues that you have ascertained visually via whatever, but you aren't like going up and like seeing what their genitals are. You're not doing like a blood test to see what their, DNA, what their gametes are, right?
Correct.
And so instead, what you're relying on are a bunch of socially derived like points of notice, right? You are creating social cues, right? And you are using those cues to categorize the person that you just saw and walked past. And you're saying, okay, they're a woman, she, her. They're a man, he, him, right? And I'm approaching this from a position of utility because gender is just a concept we use out of utility because 100 years ago people didn't know what the fuck gametes were, and most people don't ever get their DNA tested to know what their own chromosomes are or what their own gametes are. They don't know. They go around, they make assumptions based on their own physiology, what they know about themselves, what they know about their medical history, etc. But they aren't actually going out and testing that even for themselves, let alone for other people, right? And so functionally, I would put forward that your definition doesn't matter in the real world. Your definition doesn't even really hold up under lab conditions, but I'm not going to go into that. Like what we're talking about when we're talking about gender is that tapestry of different social cues, different meanings that are attached to that social categorization, and it's more complicated than just adult human female. Like it just, the thing you're talking about is more complicated than that, in the same way that like if you look at a chair seems very simple, but when you start getting into all of the physical properties of what it takes for a chair to even exist in space on Earth in that room without falling through the floor and without like bursting into flames, like all of that winds up making the existence of a chair very complicated. And it's not as simple as it first appears to us. And that's kind of where we're trying to go here, which is that your definition isn't functionally correct and it's not useful because you've effectively created something that isn't comporting with how anybody lives their lives or how anybody functions in the world. Right?
Okay, so I want to respond because you said kind of a lot of things real quick.
Yeah.
So number one, for your example about people in the corner and how I would say, oh, like look at the woman in the corner. I wouldn't say the woman plus this trans or whatever. So, but we do this many times with other categories. Like imagine if we had a bunch of like middle-aged people in the corner of the room. Like oh, there's a group of middle-aged people talking over there. And the way that you're determining that is based off of like those cues and the evidence. Like you look at their face and like maybe they look, somewhat middle-aged, like they have a couple of wrinkles, the way that they dress. But here's the issue, right? You could have somebody who is, let's say, very old, who just happens to have great skincare and they're really an old person, but they just look middle-aged. Now, just because they happen to look like the rest, and we would, like functionally, we would say, oh, look at the middle-aged people over there. It doesn't change the fact that in reality, it's middle-aged people plus an old person in that group. So that's one point.
You're kind of proving our point. That proves our point, right? That's exactly what we mean. The idea of categorization and how we look at the world and people has nothing to do with the biological realities of what we're talking about, right? And that's why the idea that the sex is a necessary condition for gender is where the issue is, because the sex is not the necessary condition for gender. Like like most of the time is part of the gender, like I said, 98% of the time. But for that 2% of people that it's not the same, is why we have an evolution of language and understanding, right? A lot of times people will use, male and female and man and woman as something that's interchangeable. And about 98% of the time, that might be true. But the reality is, as we grow as a humanity, we get better at describing things in words. Words are just descriptors, they're not prescriptive. So the idea that if you just say, oh, a woman is only adult human female, that is not my lived reality, Cody. Like, my lived reality as a trans woman is different from the definition you chose to try to describe. Your definition is not prescriptive. So wouldn't it be in your best interest to be more descriptive in how you go through the world, rather than trying to be more rigid in the way that words are created, like, and used? Like, it would be really silly, right, if somebody was like, all fire hydrants are red, right? But then the second you see a yellow fire hydrant, well, that's not really a fire hydrant. Yes, it is, right? And so that's what I mean. It's like, what's the utility of ostracizing an entire group of people from the categorization of who they are?
Okay, well, number one, when you say at the end there who they are, I mean, obviously, from my perspective, I'm not granting that just yet. But so I want to respond to the fire hydrant and then the chair thing that you brought up earlier, right? So, like, for a fire hydrant, it wouldn't make sense to say that it's only a red one because you have yellow ones. I'm not, I guess let me respond to the chair thing first, right? Because the chair example, obviously it looks simple, but it is complex because it is a cluster concept. And the reason that I feel like we're justified in saying that a chair is a cluster concept is because anytime that we attempt, or anybody has attempted to describe it with sufficient and necessary conditions, like saying a chair must have X, well, then there's always counterexamples. And those counterexamples, like, seem, at least to me, like, seem intuitive. So, okay, but then I feel like for women, I'm not so sure that we have to change it to a cluster concept, because if I say that is the three necessary conditions are adult, human, female, I don't think that I could be necessarily presented with a good counterexample. Like, any counterexample, I'm just going to claim, like, yeah, sorry, intuitively, that's just not a woman.
But Cody, you're just hand waving that away. You're hand waving.
And a couple of points, because the example I was giving with chair was invoking kind of cluster concepts, but the point I was trying to make about chairs is that the existence of a chair is very complicated beyond just how we define chair, right? Like, its molecular makeup, the atomic structure of all the component parts of the chair. Like, when you start zooming in on what a chair is, it winds up becoming very complicated. Like, when you start examining a chair just in isolation, it becomes wildly more complicated than it first appears when you just look at a thing and you're like, oh, that's a chair, and then you walk by it and don't think about it anymore, right? And the other part that I would just throw out there is, I want to invite an additional variable in here, because there are other countries and other parts of the world that have more than two genders, right? Like, are you aware of the Hijra, for example? Like, they exist in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Tibet. They're all legally recognized in those countries as well as a legally distinct third gender. And so I feel like once you start broadening, like, this idea that you have latched onto, it really starts to break down, because there are, groups of, some of the most populous nations on the planet that reject your idea of this binary between gender identities. And it's not just us existing as outliers, it's also a overwhelmingly more populated area of the planet than the United States even.
I'm not sure if somebody else wants to jump in. I heard somebody.
Well, I do want to jump in really quick. It's like the idea that this definition that you're tied to, which it sounds like you're very tied to this definition, and the idea that it could be more complicated you kind of just hand wave away. It's like, I don't believe in that, so therefore I'm going back to my original definition. But the reality is the lived experience of people and how they experience gender goes beyond the three-word or, a three-word definition that you are trying to prescribe to an entire community of human beings that share that gendered category. Do you see why it gets a little frustrating? Because we're trying to work with you, Cody. Like the idea of, like, we talked about categorization, we talked about, sex not being linked to gender, and you started this conversation with the idea of, like, I lean with the right and I kind of reject what the left is saying. And I think we've done a pretty good job laying out why we have the point of view that we do, which is the difference between sex and gender. And in your definition that you have, you explicitly make sex a necessary condition for gender, which makes it the same.
Okay, so sex is a necessary condition. So I'll just touch on the last point. I'll work backwards. I don't agree that having sex as a necessary condition makes it the same. Like, I literally just don't think that like logically follows. But aside from that, I just want to quickly hit on some. Oh,
I gotta stop you really quick because I don't agree with your premise there, right? Because the idea of the difference between sex and gender means that there's a difference between sex and gender. The idea that you're just saying I'm adding age and I'm adding, human to the category doesn't make it a different word. It's just sex with extra steps. That's all you are telling me. Gender is just sex with extra steps. And so for me, that doesn't make it not gender. Does that make sense?
Not necessarily. I'll try to maybe provide an analogy here. Maybe this will be analogous. So imagine that, as I said, we have old persons and we have young persons, right? And a necessary condition to be an old person or a young person is like a necessary condition for this is to be a human. Because I believe that in order to be a person, you need to be a human. But like, because of the fact that I'm adding extra steps, like I'm adding the old versus young part, I feel like these are two distinct categories. But in the same way that like gender is adding extra steps to the sex?
No, because old and young are social constructs that are external to the person. Gendered categories are internal. Like Cody, like that's what I'm trying to say. The gendered category is what somebody is. Just like somebody who is gay, they are gay. Just like somebody who is trans, they are trans. It's not something we choose, it's just something that's inside of us.
Well, part of my issue is you mentioned how being old or young is a social construct, but within my definition of gender, which is, woman and man being adult human males or adult human females, the adult aspect of that, being an adult, is a social construct. I don't even know. Maybe some people might argue that being a human is a social construct, but for sure an adult is a social construct.
Again, so, they're still linking it all to sex, though. Regardless about age and everything, like boy and girl and man and woman, or that's all relative. What I'm talking about is the gendered piece, the identity piece, the person who they are. Right, that's what I'm talking about, and that who they are part does not have to be connected to sex. That's what I'm telling you.
Can I try maybe a different tack?
Yeah, I had a couple other points to respond to, by the way, for what the other host said earlier, but you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Cody. When you think of what a man should be, like, what do you think of?
What a man should be?
You could be asking two questions. What good qualities should a man embody?
What good qualities should a man embody? Well, this might not be the type of answer you're looking for, but like, I feel like all people, including men, should be more morally correct people. Like they should, be truthful, honest, virtuous, those sorts of things. I'm not sure if you're asking me like, what are the typical associations that people go?
Let me. How about what do you think people consider manly?
for asking. Like people consider something manly, like if it's like typically associated with the male with like the male sex. So like things like being muscly or being brave. You might like maybe you could even say hairy, like biological traits, those sorts of things.
Yeah, but could those traits not also describe some women?
Yeah, but I would just say that these are things that are typically associated with the male sex. I think that's
Right,
usually
so
what people mean by manly.
That's male sex. You said it, right? No, those are men. Those are gendered things that you were talking about. We were not talking about sex.
Well, in my view, they're inextricably tied.
Exactly, because they're not
there we
different.
go.
Cody, that's what I've been saying from the very beginning of the show.
The same.
But you are continually, and this is why we keep talking past each other, because we're back to the original point of this call, which you do not see a real difference between sex and gender. Because you interchange them in your head.
The law of identity, A equals A. It clearly is not A equals A. It's A equals A plus additional categorization. So I mean,
no,
in
because
logic, they are different.
You know, they're not the same that way, because you are still saying A plus B plus C in a parenthesis, in a parenthetical. You still need A to exist, so therefore they're not the same. I mean, they're the same to you, right? Because you need to have a necessary condition of sex to make gender happen. So therefore they're the same. Because regardless of how many extra categorizations that you create on top of this, does not change the fact that sex is 100% needed for you to be able to understand gender. That's really what it comes down to. And so I get it. I understand. I've talked to hundreds of people on this show at this point. I know Jack has talked to hundreds of people in her own life, but the reality is, every time these conversations happen, Cody, because I'm not trying to be in bad faith here, right? Like, I'm trying to actually like explain why a trans person, or a trans like woman in this case, identifies as a woman, because that is not connected to their actual sex. Now, as a trans person, I acknowledge the fact that I was assigned male at birth, but that doesn't change my gender, because my gender is woman. That is who I am. It's who I am, right? That's what it is.
I'm also going to throw this at you. Yes, but then I would love to step in.
Okay, so number one, when you're saying that's the same because they both have this necessary condition of like sex, this might be analogous, but like I would say that you can have electronic books, you could have physical books, and both of them have the necessary condition of like possessing, like written material. But just because both have the necessary condition of possessing written material, it doesn't mean that like written material is the exact same thing as like an electronic book, and it doesn't mean that an electronic book is equal to, like written material. So
now replace notebook with person, and now you can say an electronic book is a woman, and then a maintenance book is a man, and then yes, it makes sense, because the people can come out different genders regardless of the sex that they were born. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So yes, in your analogy, the notebook is the person, the human being, and the words on the page are the gender. Because the words on the page are created and put on it, just like the gender is put on the person. The pages themselves cannot be changed. So therefore, that's what it is. Does that make sense now, using your analogy?
Well, respectfully, I honestly I don't think we're making progress on the whole topic of whether my gender and sexuality are the same. I did want to respond briefly.
It's a derivative. You're making it a derivative. You're making it derivative, and that's what I'm trying to say. They're not derivative either. They're completely separate. It's A plus B equals whatever you want to say, right? That's what it is. It's not A plus blah, 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 blah. It is just two different concepts.
Okay, I'm gonna step in because I think I can demonstrate this. Okay. Are you familiar with the television show Thomas the Tank Engine?
I don't think so, but I think it rings a bell. What's the point?
Yeah, it's a show about like trains. They have like faces on the front. They're cute little stories told about the train characters interacting with one another. There's a guy with the top hat, voiced by Ringo Starr, narration. It's charming. But it's a show made for children, right? And the main character is named Thomas the Tank Engine, and he's a train. And my question is Thomas the Tank Engine a boy because somewhere hidden on that train there is like male gametes and genitalia?
No, I think that's just personification. I think that we're just using what's that called? Like some sort of figure of speech when we say that they're a boy or girl.
Like, I mean, in the same way that people can refer to their boat. Thomas the Tank Engine is a character who's a boy.
Right. I don't think that they're literally a boy. I think that that's just a figure of speech. In the same way that when somebody that's a conservative, many times you'll see them tap their boat and say, "She's a lovely boat." Like they don't actually mean like she. They're just kind of like using flowery language.
Yeah. So they're making like an appeal to like a set of like social ideas around like what a man or a woman should be, right?
Which isn't connected to the sex.
Which isn't connected to some secret genitals hidden away on their boat or on Thomas the Tank Engine, right?
Yeah, correct.
So when we're talking about gender, we're talking about that set of social ideas that get categorized as man, and that set of social ideas that get categorized as woman. And that also leaves space for other identities to be categorized as like different flavors of non-binary, for example, right? And that's how you then also can account for, for example, nations like India that have official third genders that are recognized, right? Because when we're talking about gender, we're not always talking also about sex. You might have that sex association, but that's not true of everybody.
Yeah. And Cody, I'm sorry that we do have to wrap. I'm so sorry that we have to cut this call short. We did have a pretty long call. I would love to have this call again. I think I'm on next week as well. But I want you to do something for me as kind of like a little bit of a thought here. The lived experience of trans people and the gender and is very real to who we are as human beings, like Jack said. And just because someone doesn't agree that I'm a woman doesn't change the fact that I'm a woman. And so the reality is we have to have words that describe people's lived realities and lived experiences, because at the end of the day, if we do not have those things, then that's how discrimination happens. That's how people start to say that that people like myself don't deserve human rights, because they want to make things the way that they see it in their world and make words prescriptive instead of descriptive. So I would love to have this conversation again, and I want you to think about how gender could be something that is not a derivative of sex, and I would love to hear how you think about that. But I'm so sorry. I'll give you the last word, Cody.
Yeah. Well, I guess the only thing that I want to say at this point, honestly, besides, I'll give that some thought. And I recognize that not everybody uses gender just in the way that I use it. You're all right that people use gender terms for just referring to certain social associations with maybe femininity or masculinity. But aside from that, what I really want to get before I go is, can I get either of you guys' definition of woman?
Go ahead, Jack, if you want.
Yeah, someone who identifies with like a lot of the socially prescribed ideas around femininity, around womanhood, etc. And I think that's about it. What it takes to be a woman
Okay.
is simply identifying with that. But what a woman is going to change from context to context because different societies have different ideas of what a woman is. You know,
Yeah.
like
And,
our idea of womanhood is not the same as like what it was in 1600s France, for
yeah.
example.
And my definition is fairly similar of the idea that we have these social schemas of who we think a woman is, and that's how we are perceiving the world. So the idea of woman in my definition is a categorization of all of these different qualities that women have. So my definition of woman is different from Jack's, is it's different from yours because my definition of womanhood is individual to every woman and every person essentially. So for example, like my mother, my sisters, my people I've looked up to that are women, all of that is part in my mind of what a woman is and how I live as a woman, as a person. So that's what it is. It's a very personal thing.
Okay.
Just like any, I'm sure
Okay, sounds
every
good.
woman would answer that differently to you too. Like if you asked a woman, what is a woman to you, you know, I think people will give you a different answer. And I think that adds to the complexity of like the beauty of womanhood. I mean, there's entire libraries written to feminism and women's history and what women mean, right? And how that exists in the world and the reality and the social construct of everything. And that's what makes women beautiful, right? And men and people in general. And so to put us all in a box is kind of cheapens who we are as people.
Okay. Well, sounds good. I would like to critique those definitions next
Sure.
time. I don't know when
Sure.
next time you guys will
Of
be
course.
live, but
I will be live
Every
next
Thursday.
week.
Yep.
Yep. Every Thursday.
okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good. All right. I'll be
All
there.
right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Have a
Talk
good one.
later. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
All right. And I think we have a hard stop, if I'm seeing that correctly.
Yep.
At in 10 minutes. Oh my
Yep.
God.
No. A hard stop on callers. Sorry. I meant, well, because Joe was still on the line and I wish he had stayed because he was next. I tried talking to him in the
darn.
screener and I don't know if he ever solved his issue, but
Okay.
you can talk to Jay and give her the last
Okay,
10 minutes.
we'll give Jay another 10 minutes then. All right, sounds good. We'll just go in and finish off with Jay, she, they pronouns from Michigan. And you are live on the line with Jack and Josie. Sorry, we only have 10 minutes, but get to what you wanted to talk to us about.
Howdy. I wanted to talk about a lot of relatively complex issues,
Mhm.
but they can be boiled down simply. Living in areas where there are extreme red dots, like, so for context, I live in a relatively small town in a blue state, or at least, well, it's a purple state, if you really think about it. But do you have the notes on my call-in?
Yeah.
Are you aware of the area and of that particular area?
I mean, I am not. I don't have a ton of background on that area. No.
Well, it's pretty weighty on the socio-political stage in the United States. And the thing is, it's like heavily tied to the Heritage Foundation and such like that. It's just when you live in an area where it feels like everything contradicts each other, but you're in this area where you have a lot of government officials and stuff coming in and doing all these things that are just as scary. It's hard to have any hope, but at the same time, you get this whiplash because you'll have people who will validate you around you, and it's a college town.
Mhm.
and the college, there's an extreme wealth gap in between the people here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you are aware of the institution
Yes,
that is mentioned in my notes.
I am now, yes.
Okay. How do you, like, I don't know your two backgrounds in particular. I was recommended this show by a friend, actually. But living in a place like this, it's psychological warfare for trans people. It's how, I don't know. It's hard to think about even going for any kind of local, election or trying to figure out like how I can make any impact at all when you've got the federal government at your back door, in your backyard, whispering in your neighbor's ear that you're the devil. Thanks, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
The previous caller, Dylan, sorry, referencing.
The devil did call.
Okay.
The devil did call earlier. So yes. So I will say this to you, Jay, and I hate to say it, like I'm 40 now, so I'm essentially an elder in this in the trans community at this point. But I had the honor to sit with many trans elders, and some that are no longer with us, but legendary trans people. And one of the things that is common that comes up time and time again is when a young person comes and says, "It's getting so bad, it's awful, it's scary." And I'll use the words of Miss Major. She's no longer with us, but I've had the opportunity to sit with her and share space with her. And what she says is, "Honey, we're still fucking here. No matter what happens, even in the darkest times of our community, when we were wiped out in Nazi Germany, when we were in the internment camps and death camps as well, from the times where we have been hunted down by police, to times that we have had very horrible, horrifying times in queer history and trans history." Honey, we're still fucking here. We are not going anywhere. Living truly and proudly is the best weapon that we have. And I'm not saying that you have to be open and proud and waving a trans flag every time you go out the door. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that our community understands the violence. Our community has stood the test of time, and it will continue to stand the test of time. We build resiliency. We stand close together. We huddle close to each other. We build communities that we can lock arms in arms. But resiliency does not mean invincibility. And resiliency means that you can take a punch and keep moving forward. It doesn't mean that that punch doesn't hurt. Because the pain is real. The loss is real. The tragedy is real. But we will persevere. Because there's more of us than they think, and they will never find us all. And I say this as a leader, as a trans veteran leader nationally, that they think they got all the trans people out of the military. Oh, they got another thing coming. We're still in there. Some of us may be hiding, but we're still there. And as soon as the military allows us to openly serve again, we'll come out in a big wave, just like we did last time. And I know it gets dark, and I know it gets hard, and it's okay to feel like the world is against us. But just know that there are people every day that are fighting. And sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's somebody next to you. Sometimes it's somebody across the world. Sometimes it's somebody your next door neighbor. But in reality, we will still persevere, and we will still be here. I know it's hard. But this next election cycle that we have, and I know politics is not everything. It's not. It's just one way of theory of change that I have. There will be more trans people elected in this election cycle. And there will be more trans leaders. There will be more doctors that provide healthcare even when they're not allowed to do so. There will be more people coming out every day, regardless of how bad it is. So I hope that helps. Go ahead, Jack.
I would love to throw in there that if you are looking for where to find hope, right? That's in your call screener notes. I have found, especially as we've gone into a second Trump administration, like the antidote for feeling hopeless isn't to just like rely on kind of that old adage, hope springs eternal, because I feel like that's a lie. Like it doesn't. Hope is created. Hope takes work. And so one of the things, because I'm a political organizer, right? And one of the things I talk about on my show is that if you are feeling doomer, the ultimate way to feel safety, the ultimate way to feel hope and create that for yourself is to involve yourself in the efforts of your local community to organize other people, right? And I know, I'm not that familiar with where you are, but I can tell you that basically everywhere in this country there is some kind of local democratic group that you can join, some kind of local DSA group you can join, and by working together with other people, that creates hope. Because our hope has always been in each other, in people coming together and working for the common good. And that's where we have to turn for it now when things start getting really bad. By building community and by being known by others and knowing others in turn, like that's how you build safety. That's how people will be there for you if things get worse. And so my advice to you, if you're feeling really hopeless and feeling isolated and feeling like you might have a target on your back because of where you live, find the other people in your community who are working to make things better. It's like that old Mr. Rogers adage, look for the helpers, and then seek to become one yourself, because by helping others, that's how we breed hope. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Jay, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I appreciate the words of wisdom. It's definitely good to hear it, because being in this area, you don't really hear it because you don't really get to connect with the trans population in the area because of how it is here, and it's like you can it's mind-boggling because you can drive like 10, 12, 15 miles away and be near somebody, but when you, for instance, don't have access to like transportation, when you live in rural areas, it makes everything feel so far away and like you have no hope. But knowing that there are people out there who want to help, and
guarantee
it definitely, especially having you guys talking on this show, definitely I'll occasionally see a talk show or so like this, and I'll call in. I think I've called in on one other show, but it's like,
and apologies, Jay. We do have to wrap up, but I will add that if you need help connecting with other people in your community, if you go over to my channel, Riverboat Jack on YouTube, and join our Discord, we have people in my community who can connect you with local organizing groups. So whether it's DSA or your local Democrats, I don't want to leave you hanging or not sure where to go, but our community will help you. So all that being said, thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Good luck out there. Yeah.
No problem.
Right. Bye. All right. So that's the show. Now we got to do super chats. We're going to read through them really quick, and then Jack is going to defend her position that she is gonna have
cocky.
To give.
We do have a lot of supers, so we're gonna have to bustle through them. But
chat, don't make me look bad now.
All right.
I gotta throw it in there every now and then. Gotta throw in some spice and some shade. All right.
The
No, it's all
unexpected right
good.
hook.
Yeah, of course. So 6.99 Canadian from Maureen O'Hare, 13.69. I think we have difficulty with all sorts of identifiers, and gender is one of them. Hashtag rock, paper, scissors. Oh my gosh. Ready?
Okay.
One,
Rock.
2, 3, shoot.
Shoot. I lost.
Okay. You have to,
Damn.
yeah. It's okay. Getting one on the, oh, I see. All right. All right, next one is...
Sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to get set up so we can get through these. Okay, here we go.
Thank you for the $10 from Moroe92. How do I get over the belief that most of the supportive people in my life are placating me about my identity? Build self-confidence. Like
That's right.
that's what that has to happen. That's what that is. It is a lack of confidence.
Just got to build it.
Yep.
Be
Tell
strong.
yourself how great you are.
That's right, because you are. $5 from Mara Featherbender. The NRA has already put out statements against stripping trans people of the Second Amendment. Hashtag Team Josie. That is true. That is true. Unlikely allies.
Thank you for the $5 from Joshua Everett 9887. Because we have missed Josie for quite some time now. Hashtag Team Josie. Hopefully we get some decent calls today. Let me know from the future. I think we did.
Yes, I think
got
so.
The devil detective.
Yeah, I know. We did get the devil in here. That was interesting. So, $5 from the jazziest dog you know. As a diehard RBJ fanboy, I gotta go with hashtag Team Jack.
Thank you. Thank you for the $5 from Beakers Squeakers. You are a literal guy. You can be the devil. Hashtag Team Jack. You are a regular guy. You can be the devil.
He just kept on saying, no, literally. Yes, we are agreeing. There's literally a guy. Of course, the devil would be a guy, though. $5 from just wrench it shit Jax. I am a girl and I can be the devil. You know what? You're right. That was really sexist of me saying that the devil would be a guy.
No, she said, can I be the devil? And I say no.
Oh.
Women can't be the devil.
No.
Oh, I
That's true.
think, you know what? I think some women could be the devil. You never know.
Maybe.
Break that glass ceiling, girl.
He's an equal. They're an equal opportunity tempter.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yes.
Is this me? I forget whose turn it was.
I think it's you.
Okay, thank you for the $9.99 from Balthazar228. I would trust Jack with all my trans questions. She's double trans, transgender and transginger. Hashtag Team Jack. Thank you.
Yeah. $5 Canadian from Socialist Malachi. Offliners, robots in disguise. Hashtag Team Jack.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Malachi. Thank you for the $5 from Christina Gamergy. Joining the Democratic Socialists of America is a great start to politics. Largest socialist organization in a century. Hashtag Team Jack. Too true, Christina. Thank you.
And
so
you're the one that gets the point when I'm actually endorsed by the DSA. What's going on right now?
we do. My community does have an informal DSA caucus.
Oh, okay. Well, that is fair. I mean, I was the only candidate in my race at large that actually applied for the DSA endorsement because everybody here is so scared. And I'm like, of course I'll freaking get endorsed by them. Sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Working class solidarity.
Yeah, of course. Mara Featherbender, new meds must really be helping me so much. I look at both of you smiling and feel a wash of love. It's been forever since this was casual. Hashtag Team Josie. Oh, I'm glad. Glad to hear that.
Thank you for the $5 New Zealand dollary dues from Margie Fancy Pants. Trying my first call. System is rejecting it. I am calling from about unwarranted exclusion from the community. Ironic, isn't it? Hashtag Team Josie, you go, girl. I'm sorry.
Blame Jimmy. Just blame Jimmy. It's
Jimmy
okay.
Snow. How dare you be transphobic like that?
$5 from Slifner8. If the devil is most convincing deceiver, then the words of God must be his most intricate lie yet, Dylan. Hashtag Team Lord Free Me from Tis Call. We tried. We tried.
Thank you for the $5 from Alma LM38 in Oprah's voice. Oh God. And you get a devil, and you get a devil. You over there, you're gonna go home with the devil. Devils for everyone. Hashtag Team Boat.
You deserve that one. I'll give you that one. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. $5 from Joshua Everett. No, Satan is a very literal minded person. Team Josie. I love it.
Thank you for the $5 from Robin Webster, 1968. I am convinced that Dylan is deceiving us. Hashtag Team Josie.
Yes. $5 from Legally Mod. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. Dylan, probably. Hashtag Team Josie. That's true. If there's ever a devil creature, it's like, what is my name? I'm gonna say Dylan.
Thank you for the $5 from Joshua Everett, 9887. If you rearrange Evil Dylan D, you get why? Devil Land. It's all connected. Hashtag Team Josie.
Ooh, dang. People are figuring it out. Yeah, man, Devil's got to get on his game.
You've cracked the Dylan code.
I know. $5 from Green Garbador. I'm just imagining Elizabeth Hurley from Bedazzled whispering in my ear while I sleep, telling me to be trans. Hashtag whoever reads this. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Thank you for the $5 from Legally Mod. I often wish I had a man inside me. Progesterone is a hell of a drug, girls. Hashtag Team Josie.
Oh my God, so real. This is, oh my God. $5 from Katie Iron Fist 4389. Dylan is a Titanic-shaped brick wall of circular reasoning. Yes. I think circular reasoning is being kind and charitable.
Domain expansion, circular reasoning. Thank you for the $4.99 from Mikey Wallbanger. Sucks y'all gotta teach motherfuckers how to research, almost like they don't care about the truth and are just justifying bigotries. Shame. Too true, Mikey.
Oh my gosh, the domain expansion circular reasoning is really is like, how would you explain that? Because your power is only expanded by explaining the power. Like I was just like, ooh, it's a good one.
Right? It would genuinely be great.
It would be absolutely great. $5 from at Millennial or at Millennial. What Kel is lying about? Seattle public schools offering gender affirming care to students at no cost. From KOMO News. HRT requires referrals. Yeah, exactly. It's so annoying.
Thank you for the $5 from Melatonin Ale. Kel, did you forget this is America? Nobody is getting free healthcare. Stop believing fake stories. Hashtag Team Josie. Hashtag vote for Josie. Hashtag donate to Josie. True.
Yes, all of those things. And yeah, that was good. Nobody's getting free healthcare. That's a good one. That's good. $10 from Alia True Silver 7052. Of course, kids are influenced. They're learning. They are learning. Why is the stuff you approve not called influence, but the stuff you oppose is? Kids should be allowed to experiment and grow and find themselves. Too true.
Thank you for the incredibly generous $20 from Sleepnear8. Here's $1 for every $5 worth of super chats in the horizontal stream so far. Heart, the peachy outfit look today. Jack, hashtag Team RBJ. Thank you. I think it's a really cute
nice
little crop top situation.
I like the color. It's very nice.
It is a nice color. It brings your color out very nicely. Yes, it's nice. $5 from My Name is Timmy's Dad. What are your plans as councilwoman to deal with Dinkelberg? Team Josie. Well, we got to stop the Dinkelbergs from Bergen. That's first step to solving this crisis.
Thank you for the $9.99 from Darth Willow. Maybe the difference is women don't need to learn how to be women, but apparently being men is so complicated they have to learn how to be men according to current right-wing rhetoric anyway.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep. $5 from AppSlipNor8. Thomas, the transgender tank engine will always be the goat analogy. No, it's true. It's a good way to separate sex and gender. It is.
And it always throws them for a loop. Thank you for the $5 from Eliami Dios, Gary.
Well, I mean, is the trains do go into tunnels? So is the tunnels women? I don't know what's going on there.
Fun fact, last time I used this, someone left a comment about how one of the trains was specifically intended to be non-binary.
Oh, nice, nice.
Oh, this is you, I think.
Oh, okay. From Green Man Dave, Joanna Welly for Michigan State Representative, and hashtag Team Josie for President. Yeah, great.
Hell yeah. Thank you for the $9.99 from Balthazar228. Interesting how no one has ever asked what is a man because it was answered in 1997. A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you.
$5 from at that Nadine or Nadine. I think that's what it is. Hashtag Team Josie. Fuck yeah, Maryland. Looking forward to Frederick Pride this year. Oh yeah, that is happening soon. Yeah, I might have to make it out there.
Thank you for the $7.05 Australian from Cliff, the Thomas and Friends again. Omega lol. Hashtag justice for Dr. Softhole. Yeah, that
Is that you?
That yes.
Are you
that's
Dr.
me.
Softhole?
I used the scrunchie to illustrate how we have a tendency to anthropomorphize objects, and that's why AI is really dangerous. And I took off my scrunchie and just said, hello, I'm Dr. Softhole, and then like just threw it out behind me, and everyone now remembers the character Dr. Softhole and mourns her passing.
That's how it always happens.
Yep.
That's how it always happens. You should have known better.
Every time it gets brought up, though, it just proves my point.
That is true. Tired calling this time for advice and didn't make it through. Hope I can connect with y'all next time. Hashtag Team Jack. Yeah, sorry we couldn't make it through. We had some spicy calls.
Yeah. Thank you for the $4.99 from Bramley CX. I'm not here for Josie assuming a win before the votes are even cast. Hashtag Team Jack. That's right. Your hubris will be your downfall.
No, don't punish me. Ali, $10 from Ali True Silver 7052. Hey, now don't be dissing mommy Satan, protector of the gays and punishers of the bigots. She's a legend and saved us from the god if he exists. Hashtag Team Josie. Fair.
Thank you for the $9.99 from Balthazar. You have to be careful when combining trains rights and socialist rhetoric, or you get Thomas the Tanky Engine. It's too true.
Too true.
Thank you for hashtag Team Jack.
And
the worst
that is
type of
Josie has clinched the win, and the topic today is that Dylan is absolutely Satan himself.
Go ahead and give a brief for people who weren't here when Dylan called. So who is Dylan in this explanation?
Dylan was a man who called in earlier today to talk about how it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and how that is a lock-proof argument against trans people. And the only reason trans people exist is because the devil tempts them into becoming trans. And so I then asked him if he was the devil, and we proceeded to investigate. We did some Satan investigations here today.
Yeah.
All right.
And he said it. Satan was a literal dude.
Yeah.
A literal dude. Charging up the clock in 3, 2, 1, go.
So, folks, I think we need to reckon with the fact that there was an incident earlier today on stream when an entity called into the show. Now, I don't know if this entity was spiritual. I don't know if this entity was physical, but in its own words, it was a literal guy. And I have to take it at its word. Now, this entity called itself Dylan, but it was quoting extensively, suspiciously extensively from scripture, telling us exactly what Jesus would want us to know. And I just have to say, when I asked it, hey, wait a minute, are you Satan? The amount of dodging of that initial question was incredibly suspicious. When I asked how I could calibrate my devil dar to understand if I'm talking to a literal Satan or a human being, was unable to answer me in any kind of clear and concise fashion, and instead tried to make arguments against trans people and why trans people deserve to be miserable forever. And I just want to point out that seems like an incredibly satanic thing to do. Someone who would tempt mortals into their own downfall would surely desire everyone to be miserable forever, you know, trapped within a circular well of logic for all eternity, like a very own Dante's Inferno circle. And I just have to say, at the end of the day, Dylan wasn't able to provide any proof for any of his positions whatsoever. But, you know, just kind of seemed like a you know, someone you probably wouldn't want to get a beer with. And you know, that's kind of satanic when you really boil it down.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. The Dylan lore is real. Sorry for all of you named Dylan, but every Dylan will be suspect of being Satan from now on.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but the devil chose the word Dylan. This is your cross you have to bear.
Hey.
Hey.
I really wish I had like one of those Sherlock Holmes hats I could have just grabbed from off screen and put on. Like, it would have been perfect. It would have been perfect.
It would have been perfect. And join the Patreon because this is fun.
Join the Patreon. Do it.
Yes. Bye. Subscribe.